West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't understand why this is an issue.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, May 5th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you're waking up in the greatest country in history. Donald Trump's your president. Let's kick it off. We've got an absolutely fire show for you today. We're going to talk about these lawsuits coming from the Trump administration. Should Jared Polis and Mike Johnston be concerned? We're going to talk with Chris Murray of First and 14th Law, our resident constitutional law expert, about all of this craziness, what this means. Should they be worried or not? We're going to learn more about all this coming up here in just a second. Plus, we'll get into the news of the day. Donald Trump reopening Alcatraz. Welcome to the Rock. Well, Billy and I will debate this. Plus, Donald Trump's trying to steer business back to Hollywood. Colorado's increasing fees. All of this and more. But now it's time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good Monday morning. It's 50 and mostly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 64 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
Journalism and sovereignty, nose to nose, down to the last 16th of a mile. Sovereignty has taken the lead. Journalism is second toward the inside. Baez is third, but it will be sovereignty to rule the Kentucky Derby.
What a great weekend. Sovereignty defeats journalism in 2025. How beautiful is that Kentucky Derby? Straight from God. Hey, it's also Cinco de Mayo and today, and President Trump says he likes the president of Mexico, but he's rejected his offer to have our military destroy the Mexican cartel.
So if she said that I offered to do that, she's 100% right.
Are you disappointed that she denied that request when she doesn't want?
Well, she's so afraid of the cartel she can't walk, so that's the reason. And I think she's a lovely woman, but the president of Mexico is a lovely woman. But she is so afraid of the cartels that she can't even think straight.
And DJT, as Jeff just mentioned, also looking into opening up Alcatraz again. That should be fun. And 47 meeting with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell and the Commissioner and the Commanders owner today to talk about the NFL hosting the draft next year on the Mall. The NFL coming around a little bit.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Hey, Blake, in honor of today being Cinco de Mayo, I think we need to go back to May 5th, 2016 with one of the greatest Cinco de Mayo posts of all time.
Okay.
Do you remember this?
I think I remember this.
Donald Trump at his desk with a taco bowl saying, Happy Cinco de Mayo. The best taco bowls are made in Trump Tower Grill. I love Hispanics.
It's awesome. Oh, my goodness. How many taco bowls are in Mexico?
Please, Mr. Trump.
Oh, that's funny. I forgot about that one. Oh, man.
One of his greatest posts of all time.
Yeah, that is. I totally forgot about that. That's great.
I love Hispanics.
All right. Let's see. Okay, so I talked about the NFL and all that, which way the wind blows. And then DJT on Meet the Press with Kristen Welker on Sunday.
You have built a political movement that has transformed the Republican Party
It's transformed the country,
The
quite
greatest
frankly.
political movement in history, MAGA. Make America great again.
When you look to the future, Mr. President, do you think the MAGA movement can survive without you as its leader?
Yes, I do.
What gives you?
I think it's so strong, and I think we have tremendous people. I think we have a tremendous group of people. We talked about a number of them. You look at Marco, you look at J.D. Vance, who's fantastic. You look at, I could name 10, 15, 20 people right now just sitting here. No, I think we have a tremendous party. And you know what I can't name? I can't name one Democrat. I mean, I look at the Democrats, they're in total disarray. They have a new person named Crockett. I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person.
Oh, my goodness. If it isn't Little Miss Attitude.
3 people are injured after being shot in Denver over the weekend. Police say that it happened Sunday in Lodo. The victims are expected to survive.
Now, Blake, you talked about this new political movement that Donald Trump has built, MAGA, all that stuff. But what about Mike Pence and his Profiles and Courage Award?
Oh, yes, I saw that. What a hero. What a patriot.
I will always believe, by God's grace, I did my duty that day to support the peaceful transfer of power under the Constitution of the United States of America.
Yeah, we need to make a statue with you and Mitt Romney. As big as possible and put it in D.C.
I mean, he's standing there.
On.
I mean, the people who have gotten that award in the past are the people that advance gay marriage, for instance, Gretchen Whitmer,
Right.
because of her COVID response.
Right. And
I mean,
Pence gets it for shutting down patriots
do you think
outside the
Pence
White
is
House.
standing there going, like looking around at all the people who've also received this award?
Exactly. What an honor.
Yeah.
What an honor. I'm glad you brought that up because I almost forgot
Dude,
to
you
play
had
that.
you had the audio cued and everything.
Oh, man. I saw that and my head almost exploded. Hey, a bill increasing protections for illegals passed the Colorado House on Saturday. Jeff and Billy are going to talk about this and passed the Senate last month. Final amendments are being addressed before sending it to Governor Polis. The bill would stop local governments from working with federal agents with sharing personal information with agents, and the fact that they would have a valid warrant for entering into a non-public area and other protections. Republicans say they don't support the bill, and they fear if the bill passes that the president may cut federal funding to the state. Yes, that will happen. The Trump administration filed a lawsuit on Friday against Colorado and Denver over its laws that they say conflict with federal immigration enforcement. Student loan collection efforts return today, the first since the start of the pandemic. The 47 administration said the debt will be collected through a Treasury Department program that withholds payments from tax refunds, wages, and government benefits. Flights in and out of Tel Aviv are canceled right now. This comes after a ballistic missile attack hit near Israel's main airport. The attack was carried out Sunday by Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen. And the Coast Guard says dozens of social media influencers were rescued from a sinking yacht off Miami Beach on Saturday. The 63-foot yacht started taking on water and eventually capsized. The Coast Guard, police, and a private vessel helped get 32 people to shore without injuries, thankfully. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. 46 in Northglenn, 47 in Littleton, 50 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
Sovereignty to rule the Kentucky Derby!
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Be ready for a wet stretch of weather for Denver and all of eastern Colorado. Temperatures will be cool, skies will be cloudy, and occasional rain and thunderstorms will be developing later today. A high near 60, breezy southeast winds. Occasional rain and thunder tonight, lower 40s. Occasional rain and cool, low 50s Tuesday. Occasional rain and thunder Tuesday night through Wednesday, with highs 50s and lows 40s. Weather is sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. And schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. The Trump administration sues Colorado and Denver for allegedly interfering in immigration enforcement. Associated Press reporting, Department of Justice has sued Colorado and Denver on Friday for allegedly interfering with federal efforts to enforce immigration laws, the latest attempt by the Trump administration to crack down on what some call sanctuary cities and policies. The lawsuit claims the state and its populous city, Denver, have passed sanctuary laws violating the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution. The United States has well-established, preeminent, and preemptive authority to regulate immigration matters, according to the lawsuit, which was filed in federal court in Denver. There's no strict definition for sanctuary policies or sanctuary cities, but the term generally describes limited local cooperation with immigration and custom enforcement. ICE enforces U.S. immigration laws nationwide, but seeks states and local help, particularly for large-scale deportations, and requests that police and sheriffs alert ICE to people it wants to deport and hold them until federal officers take custody. Now, the Department of Justice has filed similar lawsuits against Chicago, Rochester, and New York. So, should Mike Johnston and Jared Polis, Phil Weiser be worried about this? To give us some perspective on this is Chris Murray with First and 14th Law. Good morning, Chris.
Hey, good morning,
Thanks for joining the
Good
Jeff
morning,
Mill
Bill.
Show.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Nice to be here on a Monday. Hope you guys enjoyed that Avalanche game on Saturday.
No.
It was brutal. Sorry.
That was awful.
That was brutal.
That was horrible.
But that's about how much Mike Johnson and Jared Polis are going to enjoy this lawsuit.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, I mean, so look, you asked, should they be worried? This is a civil lawsuit. This is not, for your listeners, especially who've heard President Trump talk about potential criminal prosecutions, right, for state and local officials who are interfering with ICE doing its job and DHS doing its job. This is not that. This is a civil lawsuit seeking to say that certain state laws and Denver ordinances and regulations are preempted by federal immigration law. What preempted means is the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution says the federal law is the highest law of the land, and in the field of immigration, the federal government runs the show. Therefore, states can't make laws that conflict with federal law. Therefore, these should go. It's actually a lot more complicated than that, but that's the basic theory. And look, whether or not Trump can win this lawsuit, and I think one of these is going to have to go all the way up to a circuit court or to the Supreme Court, the the fact that this is going to be in the news like over and over and over again over the next 6 months or so, or 9 months while this works its way to a trial, that's not great for Jared Polis. It's not great for Mike Johnston, because it's going to remind people just how absolutely nutty some of these laws are that Denver and now the state of Colorado have on the books.
That's Chris Murray with First and 14th Law. Chris, we keep hearing the governor say, it's not a sanctuary state. Colorado's not a sanctuary state. Meanwhile, he's signing into laws that basically force immigration officials to run around a parking lot and chase a guy that's been let out of a county jail.
Yeah, I mean, so let's talk. I mean, this is, as with so many things in our society now, right? It's like, well, it depends on what the meaning of the word sanctuary state is, right? What our friends on the left, right, say is like, well, sanctuary policy is something where we actively shield immigrants, illegal immigrants, right, from being detained. Like, we'll get in the way of federal officers. We'll hide them from federal officers. We will, and I don't. It's possible that actually Chicago might be doing this a little bit, right? It's possible that
Wisconsin, a judge there.
Right. Well, but I mean, like in Chicago, they have some ordinances that actually seem to require interference with federal immigration agents. Okay. Almost nobody actually does that. What they do is this stuff, right? Which is, hey, we know the law contemplates that when somebody gets out of jail, and by the way, remember, what this lawsuit is over is officials with state, right, and local jails, detention facilities, refusing to tell the federal government, hey, this guy who just finished serving his sentence, like for kidnapping, right, he's going to be released tomorrow, so come and deport him. Literally what Denver's refusing to do is notify DHS or ICE about those sorts of people. You would think they would want them gone.
But it's not like it's an administrative oversight. Oh, goodness, we forgot that he was an illegal immigrant and we forgot to call you. No, they're willfully not contacting ICE. Right.
I mean, and so, and by the way, that sort of oversight actually does happen, like, because it's, you know how bad the government is when it's just like you and the government. Imagine like several layers of government talking to each other, like mistakes will be made. Yeah. But those sorts of mistakes happen, but you're right. Here it is no local or state detention official, you are not allowed to cooperate with DHS. You are not allowed to cooperate with ICE. You cannot give them information that they are requesting under federal regulations so that they can come and pick these people up and deport them. And that's what makes this lawsuit interesting, because federal regulations contemplate that state officials have to do this. The federal laws that those regulations are implementing sort of assume that state officials would want to do this. And that's the gap here. And that's why actually, I mean, Governor Polis and Mayor Johnston might have a fighting chance on the law. On the politics, I don't know how they do.
That's Chris Murray with First and 14th Law. Now, there's other lawsuits around this. Douglas County, for instance, is suing the state, trying to prove that it's a sanctuary state, essentially, because the county wants to coordinate with ICE.
Right. Yep.
And cannot coordinate with ICE because of the law. Hence, from my perspective, proving we're a sanctuary state.
So that's right. And again, like, just, for you guys have smart listeners, like, let's get right down to what the main legal problem here is. Okay. All the laws that we're talking about that require coordination, or they really more like allow or assume for coordination, right, with state officials. These were all passed in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? Most of them now in the 90s. And they said something like this. Hey, look, states, we're not going to Bigfoot you. And if somebody commits murder in your state, we don't care if they're here illegally. You absolutely get to punish them for that, right? They don't get a free trip back to Venezuela after they kill somebody in your state. No, states, you get to prosecute them for state crimes. We, the federal government, will not get in your way. Do what you got to do. But if and when that person gets out of jail, right, then we're going to deport them once they finish serving their time in your state. Right? And the laws all assume that the states will like say, hey, wonderful, awesome, thank you. And absolutely, once jail time is up, we'll serve them up on a platter to you, federal government, because why would we want people convicted of crimes staying in our state, right? Yeah. And what's going on here now is that the leadership in this state is saying, actually, we don't want to help you remove people convicted of crimes from our state or from our country. I think that's bananas, but there is a legal argument that the law leaves enough wiggle room for them to do that.
That's Chris Murray with First and 14th Law. We're talking about the fact that the state of Colorado and the city of Denver, along with Jared Polis, Mike Johnston, Phil Weiser, and the chief of police of Denver, have been sued by the Trump administration for allegedly interfering with immigration enforcement. Speaking of that immigration interference, I don't know if you know this, but I'm just going to speculate. If you remember early on, that ICE had some problems with some of their roundups. They would show up, and then all of a sudden there's a whole lot of immigration attorneys and folks with bullhorns going, don't open the door, don't talk to them, all that stuff. Then all of a sudden they're busting up these underground clubs. And my question is, and I don't know, it's just purely speculative, do you think Jared Polis and Mike Johnston are being notified ahead of time of some of these federal law enforcement operations? Do you think maybe they're happening without that type of notification? I mean, if the Trump administration feels that Jared Polis and Mike Johnston are interfering with immigration enforcement, maybe they have to do these federal operations without notifying local law enforcement.
Yeah, well, I mean, and by the way, this is probably the first time I've ever said this, but this would be an interesting time to hear from George Brockler, right? Because or other prosecutors or law enforcement folks, because federal law does not require the federal government to coordinate with local law enforcement, right? When they're out in the community doing what they need to do, right? They should. Right. There's several federal regs that assume that coordination. And so a lot of federal agencies take that as a requirement. But I think that when push comes to shove, no, I mean, ICE can go where ICE wants to go if it's all ICE agents, right? And they don't want the help of, say, the Arapahoe County Sheriff or something, right? They don't have to tell the Arapahoe County Sheriff. That's dangerous. The reason they coordinate is because, you don't want local law enforcement getting a call. Right. Getting
blue on blue is what that's called.
100%, right? I mean, and that is especially for some of these sophisticated criminal actors. You think they wouldn't do that to try and create chaos, right? In order to allow some people that are highly valuable to them to get away? Of course they would, right? So that's why you want them coordinating. My speculation is, I think that Colorado's still getting advance notice, because whatever the politics of all this is, nobody wants that sort of blue on blue accidental confrontation.
I would hope so. That's Chris Murray with First and 14th Law. Let's go to the phone lines. We got Jack in Wyoming. Good morning, Jack. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show with Chris Murray.
If we're a nation of laws, you're dealing with two issues. It's defoliation of evidence, number one, and it's obstruction of justice, number two. And don't build a barrier. You've got the supremacy clause that says when the feds come in there, you need to cooperate. This is all BS. Where the hell are all the lawyers in this stinking state of Colorado? I'm sick and tired of it. Goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jack's basically right. But remember how the supremacy clause works. There's got to be a law, right? And most of our immigration laws, the last time we had bipartisan agreement, right, on immigration enforcement, right, was after the 1994 Republican wave, right, when Bill Clinton learned his political lesson. And by the way, you want to get red-pilled on immigration? Watch some Bill Clinton videos, like from 1995 or 1996. Watch him talking about illegal immigration. I mean, he literally sounds just like Donald Trump, right? That was the last time we really updated these laws. And back then, there was no lobby the Democratic Party was trying to pretend like it was fighting illegal immigration, right? And there was no support for it, right? It was all at the fringes. Now this is like mainstream Democratic liberal wing politics, that borders are racist, you shouldn't even have them. All people are the same. If a country is trying to stick up for its own people, that's somehow morally objectionable, right? So some of the cultural assumptions that are built into the immigration statutes are the wiggle room that is being exploited by some of these jurisdictions to defend themselves. I think in the end, the Trump administration probably is going to win here on many of these claims, but I wish it was more cut and dried when it comes to the duty of local law enforcement to actually help the feds pick people up out of jails.
I've got a question on that because Jack was talking about supremacy clause and was talking about obstruction of justice. If that is the case, why has every court case filed since the Obama administration and their deportation efforts failed?
Right.
Every court case that has claimed exactly what Jack is claiming, that this is a violation of the supremacy clause and this is an obstruction of justice, every one of those cases has failed. If he's right, how come the courts keep saying he's wrong?
Well, again, so this is first thing. The plaintiffs there were a little bit different, right? This was not the federal government, right, saying, "Hey, states, you've got to cooperate." But the reason that those lawsuits have lost, it's why I say that there is some wiggle room here, Bill. It's because if Congress passed a law that said local officials must cooperate, do blah, blah, blah. In the field of immigration, Congress can do that. The Constitution allows them to do that. Congress could do that. And by the way, if they passed it, President Trump would sign that tomorrow. Okay. But the law on the books, again, mostly is built on an underlying assumption that states will cooperate because who would want, right, a convicted criminal, illegal alien in their state, right? You would have to be insane to want to hide that person from federal immigration officials. Well, welcome to the loony bin, right? Because that's where we are right now.
Yeah, but I think one of the problems that they're going to have in court is the party that is aggrieved has the ability to change it. Yep. That's going to be the problem, is they're looking to the court for a remedy that they can affect themselves. And so there's going to be part of the court is going to look at this going, you're asking us to clean your table when you're not cleaning your table yourself. Go back and clean your table. That's really what I think is going to happen.
You nailed this. So Bill, up at the Supreme Court, right, what is justice? There's several other conservative justices like this, but Colorado Neil Gorsuch, what is his biggest hobby horse, right? People think it's, I don't know, conservatism? No. His biggest hobby horse is trying to make Congress do its job, right? A lot of the problems we have in this country stem from congressional dysfunction.
Oh, from your mouth to God's ears.
Congress giving away its power and trying to pretend like, why isn't stuff working? Well, it's because you won't pass laws anymore. Why won't they pass laws anymore? Well, unfortunately, because we vote for people who appropriate money. We don't vote for people who pass laws. And that is why we have got Article 1 of the Constitution says Congress is the most powerful branch of our government. Why? Because it gets elected every 2 years by tinier groups of people. They should have the most power.
Yes.
And they don't want the power because what they want is their offices. They don't want to do their jobs.
Yes.
And if Trump loses on this, it's because Congress has been unwilling to update the immigration laws.
Yeah, his own party is his own worst enemy at this point.
Well,
and
I got to debate that because
the 7 Democrats.
Look, the Democrats right now will filibuster in the Senate any effort to pass something that fixes this. The Democrats have hid in the skin suit of pretending to care about illegal immigration when they say we want comprehensive border reform, right? Every time they do comprehensive border reform, what they want is the Reagan amnesty times 10 again in exchange, right, to do what the law ought to do. So the Democrats are as much of a problem as the R's, right? But the Republicans in Congress ought to at least be beating this drum, right? And right now they want to pretend like Trump's got it handled. This is a place where the law is a lot squishier than we wish it would be, and an act of Congress could fix it.
Yeah, and the reason I say that his party is his own worst enemy is the Dems aren't going to play along. And when the Republicans have the opportunity, they never take it. And that's the issue that I've got. That's why I say that now you're 110% accurate, but I only see it a little bit differently because the Dems are never going to come to the table. So you've got to get this done when you have the power. And when they have the power, they never make the choice.
Right. And at a bare minimum, what you need to be doing, and it's not all on Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the president. He has a heck of a microphone, but he is just one man, right? Folks in Congress ought to be talking about, hey, we need to update these laws. The Republicans ought to be beating that drum, and they ought to be beating their Democratic colleagues over the head with it. Now, and I'll say, one of the great things about lawsuits like this is it is going to force the public to confront how crazy, right, these policies are.
That's Chris Murray with First and 14th Law. We're going to continue our conversation. The Trump administration has sued Colorado and Denver for allegedly interfering in immigration enforcement. That's the headline out of the Associated Press. Allegedly interfering. Yeah, right. All right. I want to talk to you about our friends over at L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. Colorado, you never know. Blazing heat one day, freezing cold the next. Literally, that's what we dealt with in the last 24 hours. So when your furnace or AC break down, you got to call the pros at L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. We did that at our house. Absolutely nailed it. All right. We love working with L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. Listen to this. One-day installation, no stress, personal service from start to finish. These guys were real pros all the way through. They even followed up to make sure everything was perfect. Now our home is finally comfortable no matter what the weather. And with L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, we even got more peace of mind. We had to replace not only our AC but our furnace. Guys who installed the furnace before us, it wasn't big enough for our house. So we had to redo the entire thing. And really, these guys got it all done in one day, and it was absolutely wonderful. Listen to some of these deals they got. Free programmable thermostat or carbon monoxide detector with new furnace or air conditioner installation. No emergency charges. No emergency charges. When stuff breaks, they're not going to jack up a price on you, try to get out there. No emergency charges. $0 trip fee. Price match value guarantee on equipment. Free estimates. They're licensed and insured and have a 5-year labor warranty. Everything in our house at the Hunt House works great, and our family couldn't be happier. So if you're looking for fast and honest, reliable service, I highly recommend L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. Here's their phone number, 720-851-1691, 720-851-1691, online at bestdenverhvac.com. They really are. bestdenverhvac.com. I'm sure glad we called him. That number again, 720-851-1691. All right, we'll continue. We got some phone calls coming in. Chris Murray's live in studio with us. Trump administration suing Colorado and Denver. What does this all mean? You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Live in studios, Chris Murray with First and 14th Law. Trump administration suing Colorado and Denver for interfering in immigration enforcement. Chris, when I was out at the Mike Johnston hearing before Congress, sitting behind Mike with my big cowboy hat on, Anna Paulina Luna said, I'm referring you, Mayor Mike Johnston, to Attorney General Pam Bondi for harboring illegal immigrants for enforcement. I think you need to be prosecuted under this. Is this lawsuit different? Is it related to harboring? Give us some details on this.
Well, so I think the harboring angle is probably the strongest. Outside of a couple really specific knocks on related to some federal regs, if the federal regs can preempt, but that might be a little better. But the harboring angle is probably the best thing about the strongest piece of this lawsuit, because, hey, look, if what Denver and Colorado are doing is effectively harboring, right, illegal immigrants against federal criminal law, well, then how can they not be preempted, right, from what they're doing, right? And harboring, I'd refer your listeners, if they want to find some stuff about this themselves. It's 8 U.S. Code Section 1324. Defines bringing in and harboring certain aliens, right? And it defines the crime of doing this. And it's basically if you bring somebody into the country, really nobody's alleging that that's what Colorado is doing. Although you could say that by, hey, we'll protect you, right? You're encouraging them to come.
Or hanging a giant banner that says, we heart immigrants.
But it's also if you're concealing them, right? And there could be an argument, right, that especially if it's, hey, ICE, I'm not going to tell you when I'm letting somebody, like I'm getting these routine requests from you, and I'm going to refuse to answer those requests. In fact, maybe I'm just going to make it incredibly difficult for you to find the information on your own. I think anything the state or a local government does to make it harder for ICE to do their job that isn't just not cooperating, right, but is actively like smoke screening them, that could be considered harboring. And I think that.
And is there a criminal side to that? I mean, could Mike Johnston Jared Polis be arrested?
Very unlikely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because the harboring, from my understanding, the harboring has to do with facilitation. And so you would have to get, Mike Johnston would have to be bringing them from south of the border into the country until he facilitates them from outside the country getting here. Once they're here, the policies and the harboring statutes are much more flexible as far as what he can and can't do.
I will say this, though, Bill, right? Yeah. And I think this is what Representative Lunas was referring to in the hearing, right? 8 U.S.C. 1324 A1, A2, right? It's a crime that if you knowingly or in reckless disregard, right, of the fact that an alien has come into, entered, or remains in the United States in violation of the law, if you know that, right, so that's an illegal alien. By the way, states would tend to know that, right, because they're going to have an ICE hold on them, right? The ICE is going to have let them know, right? If you then transport, move, or attempt to transport that alien by means of transportation in furtherance of such violation of the law, right? So if you move them around precisely because they're an illegal alien, right, and you're trying to keep them away from ICE, so you transport them to a different release place, a non-typical place of release, to some charity or whatever, there's an argument that you have violated the statute. Now, Bill, I'm with you. I think it's unlikely, right? But I don't want to say that there's nothing there, right? That is a very, very broad criminal statute.
Yeah, if they come in and they look at the idea that they're moving them from one facility to another to make it more difficult for ICE to take care of them or capture them, or they're putting barriers in the way to communicate, then they've got it. It's not non-cooperation. It's not the idea that, hey, tell me when we're releasing this guy, and I'm silent. It's the idea that not only do I not tell you, I go ahead and I release him late on a Saturday from another facility, or take him somewhere else in town and then let him go out of the back of the car.
And by the way, I don't know that has happened in Colorado. There have been some crazy examples like that, though, out of some other jurisdictions. So that is there's something there in some cases.
Does this how does this affect federal funding for city and state?
Well, I mean, like the Trump administration has already said that they're going to pull federal funding to law enforcement departments, right, and jurisdictions where the Trump administration designates them as sanctuary jurisdictions. there's a lot more play for the administration to pull funding. They have that authority pretty broadly to say, hey, look, we're not going to help. We're gonna review our cooperation, our provision of grants, all sorts of stuff like that with local law enforcement because you guys are making it harder for us to do our job. That's not what this lawsuit is about at all. This lawsuit is about saying, Colorado and Denver, your laws and regulations, which prohibit your folks from assisting ICE, right, and providing certain information to ICE, those are illegal under the Supremacy Clause, and they should be struck down by a federal court.
All right, we've got calls coming in. Let's go to Marie in Denver. Good morning, Marie. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thank you. I have a question. I heard the word warrant used once, and my question is, can ICE get a warrant? And if they have a warrant for an individual, then does Colorado have to honor it?
Yeah, so if ICE has a warrant, right? So then, by the way, there's two kinds of warrants, right? This actually came up in the Wisconsin judge case, right? The judge who took somebody out the back door, out the back door of her chambers, right? Which, by the way, that is that's harboring. That's why she got arrested, right? There's an administrative warrant, right, which is basically like the ICE detainer, the ICE hold. That's what ICE uses now, and it's ICE's point of view that Colorado has to honor that. However, could they go and get a federal judicial warrant, right, for somebody's arrest, right, for the crime of illegal entry? They could, and if they did that, I see absolutely no suggestion that Colorado would not honor those warrants, right? And again, that's going to be part of the defense, right, of Governor Polis and Mayor Johnston. They're going to say, hey, look, if you go get a judicial warrant, we'll honor it, right? Okay. We're just not going to follow these what we view as suggestions in the federal law.
Marie, great call. I sure appreciate it. All right, we got You Choose the News coming up. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We've got live in studio with us Chris Murray from First and 14th Law. We're talking the Trump administration suing Colorado and Denver for interfering in immigration enforcement. Before we get to You Choose the News, let's go to the phones real quick. Fred Longmont, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you today?
Doing good. How are you?
Very good. I brought this up off the air one time for Chris, but, I've looked into the RICO Act, and I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to try to play one. But, I think under the RICO Act, there are opportunities to go after the governor, to go after the mayor, but also to the state legislators that have passed these laws, because RICO has been used in immigration cases. And number two, again, Chris, this is no slight on you, but these laws are so damn nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
It says, you can be deported, but if it's Tuesday and it's raining and the wind's blowing from the north, you can't do it.
Yep.
It's either you're here illegally or you're not. Gone. None of this, this, and this. And I guess that's what bothers me about all of this that's going on.
Hey,
that's all I got to say.
I'm with you. There may be something there on the RICO side. I don't know of RICO ever having been used against state or local officials, but the case this started with a case called Cleaning Services versus Collins Service Systems. It's an Illinois case from 2000 where basically there was an allegation that a cleaning company knowingly was importing illegal immigrants and it violated RICO. And by the way, the plaintiffs in that case won. Right, so yes, RICO can be used in this context. I've just never seen it used against state officials. You're right about the laws being too complicated, too. As lawyers always say, don't blame the lawyers, blame the politicians.
Well, that's Chris Murray with First and 14th Law, setting Jared Polis and Mike Johnston up for a visit to The Rock, which we'll get to later. Now it's time for a little bit of levity with You Choose the News, Bill.
Yes, it's that time of the morning where we get to make questionable decisions. We have been left unsupervised, so we will take full advantage of this opportunity. We call it America's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. I've spent mere moments this morning scouring the interwebs to find really dumb stories about us humans, giving them even more ridiculous headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show, because as we outlined, nobody who has any power at all on the station is awake at this hour, so we will take full advantage of the freedom. Alrighty, now Blake Olson joins us from the news department, and Chris Murray has made the questionable decision to retain with us here in the studio, and he will make the third decision this morning. Oh, sir, questionable choices. Okay, here we go. Way to start off your Monday. Okay, here we go. Headline number 1, unauthorized sleepover. Headline number 2, preventative measure. Headline number 3, do androids dream of electric sheep? And headline number 4, I'm out, deuces. Mr. Hunt.
I'm out, deuces.
Yes,
please.
I'm out, deuces. This comes to us from Delaware County, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania woman is facing multiple charges after she had a disagreement with another woman as she was driving and decided, I'm out, deuces. Yes, she left something on the car during a road rage institute. Yes, she did the squatty potty. She pooped on her car. Yeah, right there.
On hers or the other person's?
The other person's car. Yes, she came over and pooped on the other person's car. Again, that's a lot of time, and I'm just wondering about the time.
Right,
person
I know.
gets up there and squats, and you're like, hey, can you stop? And there's a lot of time there. But now she has been known online as the Delco Pooper. She was arrested after taking revenge, and authorities say and she said that, she admitted to doing it, but said she shouldn't be charged because it was clean poop. It didn't even require toilet paper.
Oh, my.
Clean poop. Okay.
Out of all the things you could do with some road rage, that's lower on the totem pole.
Deport her.
It's just like, wow. The thing for me is
there's a Venezuelan jail for you.
The effort involved. You got to drop the trowel, you got to squat, there's just effort there. I mean, why did the person who was watching her poop on the car go and just push her over? Just stop that. I'm sorry. I may have thought a lot more out of this than the rest of you. Okay, now, Blake Olson, your choice, sir. Unauthorized sleepover, preventative measure, or do androids dream of electric sheep?
Preventative measure.
Yes, this is a preventative measure, obviously. Here we find ourselves in Austin, Texas, and recently Representative Stan Gertis out of Smithville has announced he has filed the Forbidden Unlawful Representation of Role-Playing in Education Act. In a press release, he said is a Furries Act. You can see the little acronym that he did there. Yes, he is making sure there are no furries in any of the Texas schools using the the potty and the litter boxes and we heard it. Remember that a couple of years ago? How it was a big deal. Yeah, during the testimony, he was challenged to show any single instance of that happening anywhere in Texas. He had nothing. In fact, at the time, he had zero evidence. In fact, he cited he's talking to Superintendent Cheryl Burns and said, she said there's been some things happening there. Well, reporters reached out to Ms. Burns, and she said, no, not a single thing. Well, we don't have anything. In fact, Ms. Burns had people went through and they walked the campuses of all the schools in which she's in charge of, didn't find a single litter box in a single class, nor a single furry. So, yes.
I don't believe that.
Then again, they went and they looked. So, that's the idea. Belief is very powerful. Knowledge a little more difficult. All righty. Chris Murray, final choice this morning, sir. Unauthorized sleepover or do androids dream of electric sheep?
The last time I did this,
yes,
some guy. It was a story about a guy who died from a rabbit kidney.
Yes, so that's a good one.
I'm going to go with the Android one because it sounds safer than unauthorized sleepover.
Now, those people that are sci-fi fans will understand that Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is the original novel title of Blade Runner. So, here's the deal. Sometimes they give them nicknames. Sometimes they treat them even like a trusted pet or a family member. A new study shows how deeply we are starting to care for our Roomba. In fact, giving it names, sometimes even dressing it up or making it a member of our family. Recent science hippies decided to study this relationship we are having with these small robotic devices, and they have come to the conclusion that it kind of shows that, yeah, we are ready to allow robots as part of our family into our houses to do menial tasks. Much like Rosie from the Jetsons. Yeah. In fact, they found out that some of these people, not only giving them names and dressing them up, one person being studied introduced the Roomba with its proper name to their parents. And some people would change how their house was organized so the Roomba would have an easier time cleaning. They would get appliances that were taller so the Roomba could slide underneath. Yes. So, yeah. Right. Some even chose a gender, but we're not getting to that transgender argument.
So that's definitely better than the rabbit kidney.
Much better than the rabbit kidney. Much better.
But I'm still going to say, why would you name this? Do you really want a slave in your house that badly? What is wrong with you?
Ooh, slave in the house. You have my attention, sir. That's the end of You Choose the News.
You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, May 5th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Just wrapped up a great conversation with Chris Murray. He's had to leave because we can only pay 1 hour of our attorneys here.
Yeah, although I'm not certain how quickly he's going to come back. I tried to make a really nice offer as he was leaving, kind of an off-air conversation that we were talking about. And I made an offer that, like, hey, I'm there for you. I've got your back. And he looked at me like, there's something wrong with you. Because he had shared that years ago, he actually had a mystery pooper. Someone had mystery pooped on his car. And so I was trying to be neighborly and said, listen, man, you got a problem with someone, etc. I go, I'll help you out. I'll poop on someone's car for you. And he looked at me and went, okay. I thought I was being friendly. Maybe not.
Bill's always the friend you want in a bar fight.
Yes.
Maybe not in that particular style of retribution.
But again, if you're looking for someone that wants to do something that might be breaking the rules a little bit, I'm just saying. I'm open to suggestions sometimes.
Rent a friend.
Yes. I am. Yes.
We've got a whole lot to get to this hour. I want to continue phone calls and texts on this. Friday, breaking news, Trump administration suing Colorado and Denver for interfering in immigration enforcement. Is this right? Do you think it's good that the Trump administration's cutting off funding to the city of Denver and the state of Colorado for being sanctuary? Should we be compassionate and welcoming to immigrants that are within our midst, and Trump administration's pushing this too far? Where do you fall along these lines? Give us a phone call, 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. We want you to join the conversation. Do you think Mike Johnston, Jared Polis deserve to be imprisoned? Are they harboring illegal immigrants in the state, affecting our communities by allowing all these illegals to live here, directly interfering with ICE, with DEA, with those types of federal enforcement operations? And should they be imprisoned as a result of it? We know of a new prison that's now going to be opened. Donald Trump opening Alcatraz. We've got so much to talk to, but we want you to join the conversation. But now is time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good morning. It's Monday morning, and it's 50 degrees and mostly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 66 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Look, whether or not Trump can win this lawsuit, and I think one of these is going to have to go all the way up to a circuit court or to the Supreme Court.
The Trump administration suing the city and county of Denver and the state of Colorado. The lawsuit filed Friday by the Justice Department claims state and local sanctuary laws hinder the federal government's ability to regulate and control illegal immigration. The suit names Denver Mayor Johnston, Sheriff Diggins, and the city council, as well as Governor Polis and AG Phil Weiser. Chris Murray, First and 14th Law, in studio last hour, and reminds us this is a civil lawsuit, not a criminal one, but not good for politicians.
The fact that this is going to be in the news like over and over and over again over the next 6 months or so, or 9 months while this works its way to a trial, that's not great for Jared Polis. It's not great for Mike Johnston, because it's going to remind people just how absolutely nutty some of these laws are that Denver and now the state of Colorado have on the books.
Obstruction of justice, what the left does best. 3 people are dead and at least 5 more are injured after gunfire erupted at a Cinco de Mayo event near Phoenix. It happened Sunday night at a restaurant in Glendale. Police say they believe there may have been more than one shooter, but no arrests and no motive have been announced yet. Real ID enforcement begins this week. Starting Wednesday, a Real ID compliant driver's license or identification card will be required to board domestic flights, enter certain federal buildings and access nuclear facilities without additional documents. NBC's Kristen Welker asked DJT if he's going to run again. This is fun.
Are you seriously considering a third term, Mr. President, even though it's prohibited by the Constitution? Or is this about staying politically viable?
I will say this. So many people want me to do it. I have never had requests so strong as that. But it's something that, to the best of my knowledge, you're not allowed to do. I don't know if that's constitutional that they're not allowing you to do it or anything else, but there are many people selling the 2028 hat. But this is not something I'm looking to do. I'm looking to have 4 great years and turn it over to somebody, ideally a great Republican, to carry it forward. But I think we're going to have 4 years, and I think 4 years is plenty of time to do something really spectacular.
Head hate on me. Can't stop DJT, and I ain't going nowhere, so you can get to know me.
47 calling for a 100% tariff on films produced outside of America and imported into the States. Trump took the Truth Social on Sunday and announced that he had instructed the Department of Commerce and the U.S. Trade Representative to immediately begin the process of instituting the tariffs. He said, "We want movies made in America again." Jury selection is set to start today in the Sean Diddy Combs sex crimes trial in Lower Manhattan. The embattled rapper and music mogul, call it music, is facing life in prison on a number of charges, including sex trafficking and racketeering. 4 alleged victims are expected to take the stand in a trial that could take more than 2 months. 46 in Brighton, 48 in Parker, 50 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
He's a nut job, but he's still sharp. He's sharp as he's the same guy he was.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Be ready for a wet stretch of weather for Denver and all of eastern Colorado. Temperatures will be cool, skies will be cloudy, and occasional rain and thunderstorms will be developing later today. A high near 60, breezy southeast winds. Occasional rain and thunder tonight, lower 40s. Occasional rain and cool, low 50s Tuesday. Occasional rain and thunder Tuesday night through Wednesday, with highs 50s and lows 40s. Weather is sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. And schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking Trump administration suing Colorado and Denver for interfering in immigration enforcement. There's so many angles to go here. I raised this question the other day, whether or not you think the federal government is even informing Jared Polis and Mike Johnston to some of these busts that they're doing. If you remember, ICE tried to do a bust early on into the Trump administration, and he literally had immigration attorneys out there and activists with bullhorns yelling, "Don't open the door, don't talk, don't talk." So they had somehow found out about the bust, were running ahead along with ICE and DEA and interfering and all that stuff. And then you had 2 pretty successful busts of nightclubs, one in February and one just a week and a half ago or so, or a week ago, down in Colorado Springs. And my sense is that maybe these busts are getting better because they're not necessarily talking too much to Mayor Mike Johnston, the governor. Do you think they're actively harboring illegal immigrants at this point? And should there be criminal prosecutions for the governor and the mayor? Would love to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Bill, we haven't had a chance to talk too much about the administration suing Colorado and Denver since the show wrapped early on Friday, and then the lawsuit's coming out Friday afternoon. Your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I think Chris is right that the PR side of this is going to be very, very difficult for Johnston and Polis. The legal side, I think, is much more difficult. That's going to be much harder to navigate, in part because the approach of the Trump administration, and what I mean by that is the Trump administration seems to approach this in a very authoritarian manner. I decree it, so let it be so. And that is going to be a problem because the courts don't agree with that. They don't think that in many cases our president is a king. And as we outlined in the conversation with Chris, is that the administration, especially with the branches of government, has the ability to affect the change they are looking for, but they are not doing it. And so I feel this is going to be one of those cases where the court is going to turn to them and say, you are trying to rescue us, you are trying to ask us to rescue you from a solution you have control over. That if you actually want to change it,
You think those 7 Democrats that'll join with Republicans in the Senate?
Here's the thing. Will 7 Democrats join in a bill that all Republicans want? No. But guess what? That's not how our government was set up. Our government was set up on the basis of compromise. It means that if the Republicans want to get this done, they better give a little bit to bring the other Democrats across. It's not a do it my way or else type of a governmental system, but that's what the Trump administration envisions, in my opinion. And that's where they're going to be tripped up, is they keep coming at it, in my opinion, on the idea of because we say it must be so, now everybody must follow it. And that is not at all how either our government or our nation is set up.
We're getting phone calls coming in. The discussion prior to this hour was Chris acknowledging there's a little bit of wiggle room because when federal law with regards to deportation was written, they assumed that local and state would want to work with them. There's no law mandating, saying local law enforcement, state officials must work with federal immigration officials with regards to deportations. And in light of that little wiggle room that says there's, you don't have to absolutely work with us all the time, some states are exploiting it. And so is it upon Republicans and the Trump administration to fix that little loophole, or have Democrats just lost their mind, not wanting to work with federal immigration officials? And of course the courts should side with the Trump administration because they're exploiting a little loophole that wasn't there to begin with.
Both can be true. The Democrats could have lost their mind, and the Democrats could be not wanting to work with the government and with the law, but the law can still be changed. And the court doesn't have to rule the Democrats are crazy. The court doesn't get to rule on that. The court gets to rule on what the statutes say. They can only, in theory, rule on the statutes and what sits in front of them. So the idea that the Democrats are not cooperating will be somewhat irrelevant. It's going to be great for our show, but as far as a court case, that's irrelevant. And if that's the idea that the White House is going to come after, that's going to be a problem because the court will reject that out of hand. They'll say it's not our problem.
I don't know if they'll reject it out of hand because intent of the law goes into the rulings of this as well. But let's go to the phone lines and see what they say. Joan Lakewood. Good morning, Joan. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning. How are you all?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. I find this very interesting that after this came down Friday, the legislature still pushed bills to protect immigrants here in Colorado. And one of the Democratic legislators raised and tried to put an amendment on that bill saying, well, if it turns out that this violates federal law, then it's all going to be moot because they didn't want to fight it in court. And the Democrats actually voted against his amendment. So they're so crazy. They're going to continue to use our money and continue to protect and continue to fight. And I hope that they continue to be wrong.
Well, unfortunately, Joe, at this point, though, is that the courts have viewed them as right. And that's kind of the difficulty that we were having with Chris Murray when we were talking about this, is there have been a number of lawsuits that were filed. And this goes back to the Obama administration. In fact, many of these sanctuary laws were enacted not in the Trump administration during the first term, but in the second term of the Obama administration. That's where a lot of these laws come from. And the Obama Department of Justice filed a ton of lawsuits about them as well. So did the Trump administration. And universally, they lost. That's going to be the difficult part of this, is we have a long history, not a long, but we have a decent amount of court precedent. And most of the arguments that the Trump and White House is making this time around have already failed in court.
But how did they lose on supremacy?
I forgot what it is. I'll have to look that one up, but it has to do with what they were claiming as far as the supremacy. You can't just, it has to do with how the law is written, because the law does not necessarily, the immigration law, mandate cooperation. I think that's where it comes down on. It's the idea that they can't force you to. The idea that the states can say, well, I'm not going to cooperate with you. The idea being that if I have a law that it is illegal to do X, Y, or Z in Colorado, I can't then sue Colorado law enforcement for not enforcing the federal law. That would be a question of supremacy if they're like, we're not going to, but you can't force cooperation. That's where I believe it comes down. It is not the local law enforcement's job to enforce federal law. That's the Fed's job. And that's where the supremacy, I believe, is going to fall apart on this one.
But it's not just not enforcing; it's actively interfering, in my opinion. And that's why you're going to have a lawsuit, right?
That's going to be the opinion. But the issue is, how is it interfering? If I'm just not cooperating with you, then that's not necessarily interference. But if I'm moving, like when Chris talked about moving someone that you're coming to get, now I'm not cooperating. So you'd have to demonstrate that. The idea that I'm just not giving you the information, that's just not cooperating. That's not necessarily interference, as how the court has determined it so far, and that's going to be the problem.
I think it's kind of interesting the sheriffs out of Teller managed to clean up Teller County. And I think one of the things that might come up is how the state has been interfering with the sheriff's rights.
That's an interesting one, Joan. So, yeah, I would think about the idea of, let's flip that. What if this was a Democrat administration and they have some gun legislation? And they want that, and there are sanctuary cities and sanctuary counties that have declared themselves around the U.S., several that we have inside of Colorado. Should a Democrat White House be able to do the same type of lawsuits against Colorado sheriffs and Colorado mayors that have declared their counties Second Amendment sanctuary facilities or cities? What do you think about that one?
I don't know what to think about that, because I believe in the Second Amendment and the fact that it shall not be impinged. And I kind of think that the federal law people are in charge of the border, and they shall not be interfered with either.
Yeah, but Colorado's not a border state. So once the illegals are here, it doesn't matter at that point. And that's the problem with looking at holding Polis or Johnston criminally liable for harboring, because they didn't affect having the people come into the country illegally. That wasn't the crime that they were responsible for. So you can't necessarily nail them on harboring based on how the courts have narrowly defined it so far.
Well, if harboring is you have to put them in your own car or pay for the gas to drive them up here, but they held out a giant sign and then provided a whole bunch of public service
where was the sign?
In Denver.
Yeah, not in Mexico. Not in El Salvador, not in Venezuela. Because the issue being that if they put it up in Denver, those illegal immigrants have already crossed the border and already here. So they didn't advertise for them to come to the country illegally. They advertised services when they were here, and that's the problem with the harbor law, is how the courts have defined the harbor law is you need to be involved in the process of bringing that person in. That's how it's been defined so far. The courts
like I said, you literally, you're going to have to define it as either you paid for the gas or you drove the car yourself.
Or put the billboard up in El Salvador. That would help you. But I
don't know if that's the case. They put out a whole bunch of resources. It's like putting out honey or pollen, and then all of a sudden the bees show up, and you're like, well, I didn't actually facilitate them coming.
In the beginning, Polis actually put them on buses and shipped them out. That's the reverse of bringing them in. He shipped them out. He spent money on buses
to other cities and states. Is that what you're talking about, Joan?
Yes.
And that could actually provide a defense for him on the harboring issue. saying that I am not going here and bringing in everybody that I possibly can and preventing them from any action. I'm actually moving them to other states and cities and towns. So that may provide. I know, but that may provide
the
some
other
cover.
state will sue them for harboring.
Yeah, but that may provide some cover for the harboring issue. That might.
Until Idaho sues them for harboring.
Yeah, that's true. I honestly and sincerely believe this is cover for the 27 Venezuelan gang members that were arrested. They put this out like hours after they said they were suing, and they said they arrested 27 Venezuelan gang people in a RICO, organized syndicated situation in 3 states, and they haven't named the 3 states yet.
No, Joan, I want to ask you this. I want to ask Bill, and I want to ask our listeners this. Is this the war that you want your elected officials in Colorado fighting? We're going to put all this money into all these battles over sanctuary city policies, over the city losing funding from Jared Polis. Why is it so important? Why are illegal immigrants so important to the state of Colorado that I'm going to have to use taxpayer funds to fight against?
It's what I voted for.
Well, I know on your side, but on the other side, why is Jared Polis, Mike Johnston, Phil Weiser so hellbent, and all those Democrats down at the state capitol, so hellbent on defending illegal immigrants that we're going to go to legal battle against the federal administration on this stuff? Why is it so important?
It's part of their chaos. It's part of their chaos. They want to ruin Colorado, and they've come very, very close to it.
Do you think so, Joan? Do you think at the core they're trying to ruin Colorado?
Yes.
How do you come to that conclusion? Help me square that circle. So you think like Polis and other Democrats have meetings about how we can make this state absolutely horrible? That's their goal. That they sit down and they decide what are the most horrible, disgusting things that we can do in order to tear the state apart?
Did you see the misgendering, Bill?
No. I didn't ask that. What I asked you was, do you think they sit around and find horrible ways to tear the state and the city apart? That is their function. That's where they start from, their conversations. You can have a disagreement with them based on priorities and how you want the state to look, but you're ascribing motivation to them that they are actively trying to destroy Colorado. So when the Colorado Democrat Party meets, on their line items are, how do we destroy Colorado? That's the function,
Bill,
is how do we tear it down?
With that line of argument, you have to assume that they know what they're doing.
No,
I don't think.
But Joan is
they
assuming
know what they're doing.
No.
I think they're destroying the state willfully, but they're doing it under the guise that they think they're actually trying to improve stuff. Ergo, they're another level of stupid.
Yeah, but that can be true. But Joan was ascribing affirmative behavior, meaning they were choosing to do it. They knew it was wrong, and they were choosing to tear it apart. Now, they can be wrong about their functionality and their processes, and that can be negative. And we can see that in a large number of both Democrat and Republican policies and procedures and laws. But what I'm curious about is, does she believe in her heart that the Democrats in Colorado are trying, their goal is to tear the state apart? Is that what you believe, Joan?
I'm not sure it's the Democrats, but I am sure it's evil.
Okay, fair enough. That's fair.
It is hard. I was walking down 16th Street Mall last week and produced some videos there. It is so broken. And there's so many businesses that have left. And I talked to one business owner who's just barely squeaking by, an immigrant down there, 40 years. He's been down there the entire time that the 16th Street Mall's been in operation. And it's so bad. He's barely trying to get it. He kept using the word survive. But, Bill, I bring this up to guys like Ted Trimpa and Deep that we had here. I'm like, is there at any point where you guys go, maybe it's not working? Maybe we can turn some different policies around and try to improve this? And they just go, nope, we think Colorado's great. And I'm sitting there going, dude, it is so bad right now. So whether is it willful that they want to destroy? It's hard to believe that it's not willful at this point. It's just so bad. And they just keep going with it.
It depends on how what you define as far as bad, too. Because their version of what they see as bad may be different than yours. And that's why I worry when I hear...
It's like literally totally bad. Like crime, fentanyl overdoses, cost of living. I'm hard-pressed to find anything where you look at the state and go, well, I actually really like the direction it's going. It's like universally bad.
I'm not sure about universally bad. I'm not exactly happy with most, some of the directions. But the issue that I've got is they can still make decisions that everybody on the show, Joan, listeners, you, I can disagree with. But to assume that they're doing this because they know it's going to be bad and they're going to tear things apart, I disagree with. I don't see that. And I have yet to have anybody, either from Republicans or Democrats, demonstrate either side. Because I see Democrat friends of mine say that Donald Trump is trying to tank the U.S. economy with his tariffs and trying to erode the value of the dollar because, to get better terms on international loans and get better terms on our debt. And I disagree. I don't think that's his motivation. I don't think he's trying to do that at all. I don't think he's trying to push us into a recession. So when the Democrats say he's trying to do this on purpose, I disagree. And when people say that the Democrats here are trying to drive the state into the ground, I disagree. We can have different goals and we can see the things differently, and that could be a different perception. But when we ascribe they are trying to do this, I think you're crossing a bridge that you can't support. It's just personal.
Joan, last comment?
I'm happy to see it, and I am really interested in the RICO aspect of it. I think that there is going to be a great deal of brouhaha at the civil level, but I honestly think that some of the things that will get done will be in the criminal level, and it'll be interesting to see if the Venezuelan organization keeps their mouth shut.
When you say Venezuelan organization, you're talking about TDA?
Yep.
Interesting. We'll have to see. Joan, I appreciate the call. Joan's line is open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. We are talking Trump administration suing Colorado and Denver for interfering in immigration enforcement. Is the president right to bring these lawsuits? Are the Democrat leaders of Colorado right to defend their policies? Due process with regards to illegal immigrants. If you want to kick them out, you got to have a warrant, and we're going to let ICE do that. It's not the job of local law enforcement to coordinate with you. Where do you fall along these lines? Do you want to see criminal charges brought? Like Anna Paulina Luna charging that Mike Johnston and Jared Polis are harboring illegal immigrants. Phone lines are open. Would love to hear from you. Folks, want to talk to you about the Colorado Farm Bureau. Whether you pulled out your skis or snowmobiles this last winter, it was great. It was a great year for winter fun. But the snow means even more to Colorado agriculture, and I want you to know that our state's farmers and ranchers are doing their part to protect our future water resources. The people of Colorado agriculture always have conservation, efficiency, and reuse top of mind when it comes to water use. As the metro area continues to grow, the Colorado Farm Bureau leads talks with state policymakers about preserving water for all areas of the state as pressure on the water system grows. It's going to take all of us to find a solution. My friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau are leaders in water conservation and water policy. They understand how to balance water for crops and water for families, and they're doing more with less. You can do your part. I recommend you join and become a member today. Go to coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com to join the great people there. All right, we'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. DJT bringing lawsuits against Colorado and Denver for interfering in immigration enforcement. He's not only suing the state, the city's suing Phil Weiser, Jared Polis, Mike Johnston, and the chief of police of Denver. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's see what Jacqueline in Nebraska thinks about all this. Good morning, Jacqueline. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, fellas. Yeah, I've been listening this morning. You know, like I asked Bill, I said, what do you suppose that Johnson and Polis, these Democrats, expect to get out of this? They're expecting to get some kind of outcome. What would that be? Anytime they act up like that and they come out, they want attention. They want to be noticed. But I honestly think that every single one of them ought to be investigated, and their finances, if they're taking money or if they're receiving any kind of benefit, because there's no benefit for this, and there's to take a stand against the people of Colorado, the taxpayers who are footing the bill for these illegals, makes no sense. Polis is going to be out, but Johnston is a spoiled little kid from Vail. What do you suppose? I asked Billy, I said, what do you think that he would be risking everything to get?
You know what I think it is? I'm not certain that he views it, that either Polis or he view it as risking a whole bunch of things. Because in my mind, and again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to sit in the seat of a Democrat. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, strategically, how can this make sense? What are the goals that either Polis or Johnston see from this idea of sanctuary city, state and status? And I think Polis is pulling back a little bit because he wants to cultivate a libertarian type of hopefully presidential run, but I do think the wind is out of the sails there. I do think Mike Johnston is playing this for a higher profile. He's already had his big TV moment when he got to stand up to Congress that was broadcast nationally. And I think he's using this to create a larger platform that if he stands strong against, especially stands strong against the Trump administration and is viewed as that fighter, then the donations will pour in, not locally, I'm saying nationally. He will get some of those big checks nationally, people that aren't paying attention to the day in, day out homeless problem here, the fact that he can't find 40% of the money in some of the budget. That's not going to be an issue to those big national donors that'll write those multi-million-dollar checks because they've seen him in Congress in front of the TV, and now they're going to see him taking on the evil Donald Trump in the court. He's the freedom fighter. I think that's what he's playing for. He's playing for image.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. He's getting a lot out of this, and at the sacrifice of the residents and the people here in Colorado. And I know a lot of people, Bill, that have lost their benefits, lost $16 worth of food stamps every month to an 82-year-old woman taken from her, because this is what they want to do: is they want to buy these people. Now they're biting off, I think, more than they're going to be able to chew, because the violence and the crimes and the damage they have done to the state of Colorado, it's going to take a long time to fix.
Jacqueline, Bill, I spend a lot of time with these folks protesting down at the Colorado State Capitol. I'm on a first-name basis with many of those
yes,
folks.
You are.
So
some of them have built a nickname for you.
That's exactly right. Parasite, actually, is the name. But I go down there. These are the majority voters of Colorado. All right, 30,000 of them showed up for Bernie Sanders, and maybe some of them were paid. But if you discount that, I think you're setting yourself up for failure here. These are the core voters of Colorado, and they are bleeding heart progressives, Jacqueline, who just want to care for these illegal immigrants that are here. Do you know how far they've traveled to get here? They're just looking for a better life. We're a nation of immigrants. We just need to care for these people. And, I mean, if they were logical to begin with, Jacqueline, they'd be conservatives. They're not. They're just bumper sticker progressives who feel like we need to just care and pour out all these government services for these illegals. They've never done math a day in their lives with regard to government spending.
Jacqueline, I think Jeff has got something right there, and I want to get your opinion on it. The idea of care. And I do believe that Jeff has hit on something there, that many of Colorado's Democrats believe that that is the issue, that that's the key, that they can care their way out of these problems and these situations, that they fundamentally think that the conservatives and the Colorado GOP don't care and are just looking for the almighty dollar. And the Bleeding Heart liberals in Colorado believe that if we just would care enough about the illegal immigrants, if we would care enough about the kids in the schools, if we would care enough, then all the problems would be solved. What do you think about that idea, Jacqueline, where Jeff's talking about it? The idea that maybe the big flaw in how the Democrats are thinking is they just think that we should all just be a bunch of Care Bears.
Well, you have a point there, because you're right. They want to fix something that they broke. You know, I don't know where most of those people, those 30,000 people, came from, but I do know I have a niece that went down there, and she got $500 just for getting off the bus. So I don't know that they're being paid, but I know a great deal of them were bused in and around. They brought some in from Nebraska. They brought some from they brought in a lot of those people. I asked my niece, I said, why did you go?
They got paid more than I did.
Off air, if you could send us the email, because I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not opposed to showing up to whatever the hell it is. I'm getting $500. I'll hold the sign for $500 if just for an afternoon. Sure.
Well, they went. She lives in Colorado Springs, and her and a couple of girlfriends went. They rounded them up at the college campuses and stuff in Colorado Springs, Pike Peak National. Or college.
Community
so
college,
they did in Pueblo to community college. So she said, I don't care what the hell they say. She said, I don't believe any of it. She said, but I got $500.
Yeah,
so I said, next time you do it, call me.
Jacqueline, I think there's some folks out there, but I think there's some true believers, and they believe in no borders. They believe that any immigration law is racist. They're not logical people. If they were, they'd be conservatives to begin with, but they're not, and they make up a majority of the electorate in our state. So when Jared Polis and Mike Johnston stand up to Donald Trump, these guys are standing up for justice. Is it going to cost them more in taxes? Yep. Is it going to cost them more in government services? Yep. But, you know, and crime and all the other problems that Colorado's face. But look, I walked down the 16th Street Mall. It's a barren wasteland. It is terrible, and they keep voting these guys in. We're just surrounded by a bunch of doofuses, but I just wish...
Well, and you know, the worst part of it is these people don't have this going on in their neighborhoods. They don't live next to it. They're not victimized. They're not the ones that are being hurt. I mean, they live someplace else.
Yeah, some of them do. Like, I'd say that the Cherry Creek progressives are that way, or the Cherry Hills progressives, but a lot of them are just living in... with all these problems, and they just keep voting Democrats. We're trying to solve a problem that's emotional with logic, Jacqueline. It's just going to be a challenge. Jacqueline, I sure appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jacqueline.
Jacqueline's line will be open 303-696-1971. Let's talk alarm detection systems. Speaking of crime, speaking of all the problems we got to face in this state, if you're going to run a business, you got to protect it. And alarm detection systems, top-notch, highest level of service and expertise. Think about the time you could be saving using one source for your cameras, key card access, fire and intrusion systems. ADS offers expert alarm installation and testing by highly trained technicians, 24/7 professional monitoring, same-day or next-day service upon request because downtime isn't an option, dedicated teams for camera access control, and fire alarms, and over 300 security professionals working for you. Choosing ADS means your business stays protected and will be ready to open tomorrow. They combine human monitoring with the latest AI camera technology to prevent crime in real time. Look, they're trusted by large and small businesses, including many Colorado schools. Their security experts will review your system for free. All you got to do, go to adsalarm.com and schedule your appointment today. That's adsalarm.com. Alarm detection systems, the first choice of front-ranging Colorado businesses. adsalarm.com. All right, we got some phone lines we'll get to next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Jam-packed phone lines as we discuss Donald Trump's administration suing Colorado and Denver for interfering in immigration enforcement. Mike Johnston, Jared Polis, Phil Weiser, the chief of police of Denver, all facing this lawsuit now. What do you think about it? Let's go to the phone lines. Dave and Divide. Good morning, Dave. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning, guys. How's it going?
We're great. What's up?
Well, I think it comes down to the mainly the voting. They know they can't defeat traditional American values without bringing and flooding in immigrants. Why do you think they were pushing for no voter ID? Another thing that doesn't make sense, And I'm sure they know a lot of these immigrants are going to be quite grateful. I would say illegal aliens are going to be quite grateful to them for opening borders and bringing them in. And again, it goes back to the predator thing we talked about. Even the normal family that came into Denver that isn't Tren de Aragua or MS-13 is preying on services. Denver had to cut services due to all this. I mean, come on. It's like they want us citizens to ignore the fact that we have a country, that we have rights, and we're supposed to cater to everyone. That's disappearing fast.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Now, most of the illegal immigrants that we are seeing are coming from South America. That's where the majority are coming from. Do you view those South American countries as being culturally more conservative or more liberal?
I don't know enough about them to even. I would say a lot of them are dictators, probably dictators, and the conditions are bad. And yeah, you want to get out of there, but why?
See, culturally, my impression is culturally they're more conservative. They are more religious. They're more about the family unit. They take care of grandma when she gets older. If you would talk to families in Venezuela, in El Salvador, in Chile, in Honduras, chances are you would find a family structure that they desire that is very close to what we would consider a conservative core family structure. And when I hear people that are conservative saying, well, all these illegals are only coming in here so they can be Democrat voters, I'm unconvinced, because I see where they come from culturally to be much more in lockstep with conservatives. And I feel that when conservatives say these illegals are just going to become Democrat voters, you're giving up. I feel the conservatives are just washing their hands and say there's nothing we could possibly do. If you talked to these immigrants, legal or otherwise, and made the case, chances are they're going to listen to conservatives. We saw Donald Trump make larger gains in the Hispanic and black population than really in the last few decades. And that wasn't because those people all of a sudden became liberal. It's because he played into the conservative nature of what those cultures are. So I just caution you, Dave, that to say that all these illegals are absolutely going to be Democrat voters, I think that if they get here, make a play for them, man. If you think they're going to be voters, make a play.
Well,
Don't give up.
Bill,
on them.
I think what you're doing is overlaying traditional conservative, liberal American formulas upon people in South America and Latin America. They elect dictators. Well, not elect, but they did in Venezuela. They did with Chavez.
Well,
that was a country that was, generally one of the wealthiest countries out there. Then they put Chavez in, and he becomes a dictator. He takes over and nationalizes a lot of the industries down there. So,
But
yeah, they
Neely's
may take care of grandma,
but
they're putting these dictators into office.
But Neely, who's in office now, is more conservative. The same thing in El Salvador. Go ahead, Dave.
Let me give you a few examples here. Okay. Now, Schumer the other day, I heard this. I don't know when he made the speech. He says there's no more babies being born. We won't survive if we don't bring these people in. No, your Democrat Party won't survive. Here's another example. Okay, when the stray dog comes up and you feed him, he wants to hang around and stay. He's going to stay. And if things were so great down there in Venezuela, how come they had to leave? And another thing, look at the cartels across Mexico. They're protected by the people because they provide a great life for the people. The people protect a lot of these cartels. They're like, yeah, we know they're bad, but...
Dave, I disagree with the idea that they provide a great life. No, they have the guns. and they say you don't do this, we shoot you. That's
but
much
they
more
also
effective.
provide.
But
they
but
also provide money for the town.
Yeah, I know.
They,
but
they
at the
do
core
this.
of that,
They do that.
I know that, Dave. But you understand that at the core of that is if you don't, you're dead. Regardless of the money they're spending around, at the core, it's still you don't do this, you're dead. That is the core motivation.
Go back to the lost puppy dog that ain't got a home, and all of a sudden you're feeding it and giving it a place to shelter. Oh, he's pretty grateful.
Yeah, I know, but you're beating that puppy dog as well, and that's the that's a relationship that's different, and that's the idea. Is at the core, they're beating that puppy dog.
Dave, appreciate the call. Dave from Divide. His line's open, 303-696-1971. Let's go try to get one more. Francis Golden. Good morning, Francis. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Hey, guys. Hey, I love it when you guys have Chris Murray on. He's a good egg. And I think he's right about some of this stuff. Some of the lawsuit stuff is going to be very difficult for the Trump administration to prove. But I think it serves a secondary purpose. I'm a big by-the-book guy. I do believe that, look, you want to go enforce things, go get warrants. There's a mechanism to do this. Don't give me these lukewarm detention orders and things like that. That's not how politics works. That's not how the government works. These functions are there for a reason. But if this tarnishes Mike Johnston and Jared Polis and some of these other lower level politicians in this state, and it'll tarnish the heck out of them. Good. I'm all for it because this is going to take time. When it starts hurting people in services, when it starts hurting people in the wallet, having these sort of policies, these stupid sanctuary policies, that's when people are going to get voted out of office. The pendulum is swinging. But it's going to take time. You can't microwave this.
Francis, I would hope so. And thanks for bringing up the secondary benefits of all this. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is 710 KNUS.
It's 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, May 5th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and Honda takes from the right, left, and center. We're talking the Trump administration suing Colorado and Denver for interfering with immigration enforcement. They're not only going after the city and the state, but Governor Polis, Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser, Denver Mayor Mike Johnston, and Denver Sheriff Elias Diggins, all defendants in this lawsuit. So, lots to talk about. Let's go back to the phone line. Sam, Denver. Good morning, Sam. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Good morning.
Hi, I've got an idea that Trump should tell the libtards that we'll let more immigrants in the day we pay off the $36 trillion debt.
You know, honestly, I'd be in favor of that one, but there's no way either the Democrats or Republicans are going to get there. It's just not going to happen. That's going to be the problem.
Well, I know, but it tags immigration costs this country. We've been giving money away to everybody in the world for years, and we're $36 trillion caring about everybody. And we tag, letting immigrants in by paying down this debt, and they'll shut up. That's what I know. It's just a thing to throw out there. So.
It's like asking the lawmakers not to receive a paycheck until the budget's balanced. But
now, Sam,
we can all hope.
Sam, with you talking about this is the debt, and this is a bit of a tangent, etc. What do you feel about the current Republican debt that they're trying to push through in this big, beautiful bill that will raise both the debt and the debt ceiling? That's counterintuitive given everything that the Republicans have been saying over the last 4 to really 10 years. What do you think about that? That when the Republicans finally have the keys to the castle, they've got Senate, House, and White House, that the budget bill they come to the table with is going to not only raise the debt ceiling, but also raise the national debt. What do you do with that one?
Well, I don't agree with that. They need to cut more. But I certainly am glad that we have he's not a politician, the president who was addressing this debt that everybody else hasn't ever mentioned, that they just sweep it under the rug and don't talk about it. But this could bring down our democracy as much as anything else. So it's got to be addressed.
And that's the thing is, I believe that it could, and that's what worries me, is that the Republicans that have been screaming about it for so many years, then when they have the power, aren't doing anything functionally about it. That's what I'm worried about.
They're politicians, and they want to get reelected.
Yeah, that's
Sam. They're on the start.
That is exactly right, Sam.
Look,
exactly right.
It's Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, defense spending. If you don't take those and address those, you're only dealing with 16% of the budget to begin with. Those have to be confronted. And even if you're Donald Trump, you got to deal with those. Sam, Denver, sure appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Now it's time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning. It's 50 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 66 today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story. It is Cinco de Mayo, and President Trump says he wants to help the Mexican president defeat the cartels with our military. The cartels are destroying innocent victims, not only in Mexico, but also here in the States. But she is frightened to death.
So if she said that I offered to do that, she's 100% right. Well, she's so afraid of the cartel she can't walk, so that's the reason. And I think she's a lovely woman. But the president of Mexico is a lovely woman. But she is so afraid of the cartels that she can't even think straight.
47 is suing the city and county of Denver, as Jeff and Billy have been talking about, in the state of Colorado. The lawsuit filed Friday by the DOJ claims state and local sanctuary laws hinder the federal government's ability to regulate and control illegal immigration. The suit names Denver Mayor Johnston and all the lefties, Sheriff Diggins and the city council, as well as Governor Polis and AG Phil Weiser. Chris Murray, First and 14th Law, in studio this morning. and reminds us that this is a civil lawsuit, not a criminal one.
Look, whether or not Trump can win this lawsuit, and I think one of these is going to have to go all the way up to a circuit court or to the Supreme Court, the fact that this is going to be in the news like over and over and over again over the next 6 months or so, or 9 months while this works its way to a trial, that's not great for Jared Polis. It's not great for Mike Johnston, because it's going to remind people just how absolutely nutty some of these laws are that Denver and now the state of Colorado have on the books.
What the left does best, obstruct justice. Nice job, commies. Nice job.
I know that you are only 100 days in, but as we sit here today,
Kristen Welker, NBC on Meet the Press on Sunday.
who do you see as your successor, Mr. President?
Well, it's far too early to say that, but I do have a vice president, and typically it would be, and JD's doing a fantastic job.
He would be at the top of the list?
It could very well be. I don't want to get involved in that. I think he's a fantastic, brilliant guy. Marco is great. There's a lot of them that are great. I also see tremendous unity, but certainly you would say that somebody's the VP. If that person is outstanding, I guess that person would have an advantage. But I think the other people would all stay in unbelievably high positions. But, it could be that he'd be challenged by somebody. We have a lot of good people in this party.
Jury selection begins today in Lower Manhattan in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking and racketeering trial. Federal prosecutors claim Combs used his power and influence to force women and girls into participating in sexual encounters and then either threaten them or physically attack them to keep them silent. He's turned down a plea deal and is facing life in prison if fully convicted. Starting today, the Department of Education will resume collecting defaulted student loan debt. Student loan repayment requirements were paused in March 2020 due to the pandemic. Several airlines are canceling flights to Tel Aviv after a ballistic missile attack hit near Israel's main airport. The attack was carried out Sunday by Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen. Target is adopting a new self-checkout policy, given the recent surge in shoplifting. The retailer announced it's now limiting self-checkout to shoppers with 10 or fewer items. 46 in Westminster, 48 in Parker, 50 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. So you ever heard of the Jeff and Billy show?
Jeff and Billy.
Blake Olson.
He's the worst thing to happen to old people.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Be ready for a wet stretch of weather for Denver and all of eastern Colorado. Temperatures will be cool, skies will be cloudy, and occasional rain and thunderstorms will be developing later today. A high near 60, breezy southeast winds. Occasional rain and thunder tonight, lower 40s. Occasional rain and cool, low 50s Tuesday. Occasional rain and thunder Tuesday night through Wednesday, with highs 50s and lows 40s. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. And schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Did you see this? Houthi missile strikes near Israeli airport after evading missile defense, as Fox is reporting. A Houthi missile struck Israel soil near Tel Aviv's largest airport on Sunday, causing multiple international airlines to cancel flights to Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed retaliation for the attack Sunday and will participate in several defense meetings throughout the day. The missile reportedly evaded both Israeli and U.S. missile defenses. Whoever harms us, we will strike them sevenfold, Israel responding. Now, friend of the show, Don Sweeting, Chancellor of Colorado Christian University, was actually at the airport, and I think he was there when the missile strike took place. He's joining us now to give us a live update. Chancellor Sweeting, thanks for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, great to be with you. Great to be back on U.S. soil, actually.
Yeah, well, tell us about it. I saw some social media posts, but I think you were close enough to even hear the missile hit.
Yeah. We had spent 12 days in Israel with some Jewish friends, and we were leaving. We checked in at Ben Gurion, and we're walking down the big ramp towards our gate, and all of a sudden the sirens went off. And they people looked confused at first, and then they all started running towards the shelter. We were running with them. And before we got to the shelter, we heard this huge explosion. I mean, it was really close. Somebody said, "Oh, Iron Dome shot it out of the air." I said, "That's not an air shot. You could tell it was on the ground because the ground shook, and it was actually just a few meters from Terminal 3 where we were." But they were going for this was an attempt at mass murder, and we're grateful that it didn't hit. But Mike, our flight crew was late, and when they came on the plane, they said that the car in front of their car got hit by shrapnel, and they said they were just 10 seconds away from being hit. So it was. I mean, this was. We all feel. You feel violated, and then you feel angry because, of course, this is Iranian-backed Houthis, and it's coming at Israel from all sides, but with a deep Islamist agenda.
That's voice you're hearing is Dr. Donald Sweeting. He's the Chancellor of Colorado Christian University. He was at the Israeli airport where a Houthi missile hit right near it. Now, the Houthis are a radical Islamist group in Yemen, and like you said, they were aiming at the airport, it sounds like.
Right. They keep shooting them at the same place to try to get it more precise, and the missiles keep getting bigger. I just saw online a picture of the hole in the ground, and it was a huge crater. If it had hit a building, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people would have been harmed and injured.
Now, you hear the sirens, you heard the explosion. Kind of describe what that explosion was like. Did it shake windows? Did you feel it? Did you feel the impact? Did you just hear it? Talk to us about the actual hit.
We heard it. We weren't by windows at that time. We didn't even make it to the shelter by the time it hit. But we felt the building shake, and it was just super loud, like next door. And but this the thing people don't realize is the day before the sirens went off in Jerusalem where we were there, and there was a Houthi missile that did get shot down. And 2 days before that was Israeli Independence Day, and it was a very windy day, and there were arsonists, Hamas arsonists, who set off fires all over Israel to try to just burn fields and burn villages and whatever was in their way. So this was all week long. And then on our trip, of course, we were also meeting with hostages who were released and family members whose family members are still hostages. So it was a really sobering week for us.
That's Dr. Donald Sweeting, the Chancellor of Colorado Christian University, returning from Israel over the weekend when a missile hit near the airport fired by Houthi rebels. These are Islamists in Yemen and on the Yemen-Saudi Arabia border there. Now, walk us through.
Jeff,
go ahead.
But not just Islamists. This is Iranian-backed Islamists, right. Just like Hamas, just like Hezbollah. So there's a definite group orchestrating all this, and we can't make it sound just like isolated things.
Right. Let's talk about that. You mentioned, as you said, these are backed by Iranians. What's the feeling in Israel right now with regards to Iran? They've been able to strike. Israel's been able to strike kind of deep within Iran with assassinations, bombs going off, those types of things, and then all the pagers that took place. Is there a call for direct strikes? Are you hearing calls from Israelis and Israel leaders to strike Iran?
More and more we are. So Israel has been really polarized recently between left and right, and and secular and religious groups. I think October 7th really unified the country, and they realized, that they can't ignore this, that this is a real existential threat to them, and it has to be dealt with, and it has to be dealt with decisively. While Netanyahu's not popular with everybody, I think lots of people recognize him, that he's a good wartime prime minister. And after the war's over, I don't think he'll be in office long, kind of like Churchill. But they know that he's serious, and he's going to stand up for them. So I see much more unity.
That's Dr. Donald Sweeting, Chancellor of Colorado Christian University, returning back from Israel. What is the take on Donald Trump and the Trump administration and America's support of Israel? What did you hear from Israeli leaders?
Yeah, so by and large, I mean, they love Trump and they love Mike Huckabee. We met with the ambassador and we met with the president of Israel. They just feel like these are the most supportive American leaders that they've had, in a long time. Although David Friedman was a great ambassador as well. And they want Trump to not equivocate with Iran like the previous administrations have. So they're hoping that, he will be firm and minimize or eliminate the threat.
That's Dr. Donald Sweeting. Go ahead.
Western liberals are pretty, I think, naive about what Israel faces. I mean, they face an existential threat on all sides. They are our best ally in the Middle East. They are an outpost, an island of order and sanity in the Middle East. And they are really an outpost of Western civilization there. And they're the ones who are, I think, more than anybody else, dealing with holding back the forces of radical Islam. And I think America's got to wake up. This is not an inconvenience. These are our frontline people, and we need to stand with them and support them at this time.
Can you give us an update on what you heard from people regarding Gaza and the war against Hamas?
Well, when I first, this was my 8th trip over there, and the first times I was over there, people were talking about two-state solutions, but nobody's talking about that these days, because I think everybody realizes that Hamas and its charter are just not only radically Islamic, but devoted to the destruction of Israel. And you can't have justice when one side wants to totally obliterate the other and keeps doing it. So there's a lot of support for, there's huge support for getting the hostages out. That's such a personal thing in a small country. But I think after that, we have to take Hamas and its threats seriously. When people say they're going to do things, we have to believe them, and not like so many in the West. We just kind of think, they don't really mean what they say. They're really nice guys underneath it all. No, they're not. These are barbaric people. They want to see the destruction of the state of Israel. Israel's the little Satan. America's the big Satan.
That's Dr. Don Sweeting, president of Colorado Christian University.
Chancellor,
sorry. Of Colorado Christian University, joining Jeff and Bill live. He was at the airport in Israel when the missile hit nearby just over the weekend. He had talked a little bit about getting the hostages released. On 2 separate occasions, Donald Trump has said that if the hostages aren't released, hell on earth would break loose. We haven't seen hell on earth break loose. Are any of the Israelis talking about that? Because what I'm worried about is Trump has set a pretty severe deadline twice, and it's been ignored. Right. Is that eroding his power?
I don't think it's eroding his power. I think they're just in the last 24 hours, you've heard Netanyahu say, I forget, it's called Operation Gideon Sword or something like that, where they've just called up tons more reservists, and they're going in to finally deal ultimately with Hamas and get it out of there. They haven't been willing to do that to this point, but the attack yesterday was a turning point. You could tell afterwards, and the news sources, you could tell by the response of President Trump, you could tell by the response of Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Now, Dr. Sweeting, we were talking about the idea of no more two-state solution on Israel's side. I'm hearing in the Arab world, they need a two-state solution in order for this thing to calm down and for them. So if Israel is not willing to have a two-state solution, is there functionally a possible solution to this conflict? Or is it just going to be a larger conflagration?
The way you put it makes it sound like Israel's not willing for a two-state solution. Israel has been willing for a two-state solution, but one side is committed to the destruction of Israel, and you can read it in their charter. And they've stepped back. You know, when Clinton was president and others, and we were close to peace deals that were sort of a two-state solution, they've rejected that. So it's not Israel who's rejecting that. It's been Hamas that's been rejecting that.
Dr. Donald Sweeting, Chancellor at Colorado Christian University. Dr. Sweeting, in the New York Times over the weekend, a big story on an attack that took place against the Red Crescent in Gaza, and they went detailed minute by minute how Israel misidentified them and then brought shots upon them and killed a number of folks that were part of the Red Crescent. Is that part of the discussion taking place there in Israel about that particular incident?
I mean, that was in the news for a few days, but everybody knows that when you're involved in a war, there are going to be mistakes made, and it seems like in the newspapers that I read, Israel is very willing to acknowledge its mistakes. They're very careful before they go in. We actually had a fascinating briefing with the Hamas group. It's an elite group of counterterrorism group, and we were with them before they'd go out each day and do 2 outings a day, and they were talking about all the preparations and all the warnings they give before they go in, and that's pretty unusual, actually. But then when they go in and they deal with these bad actors, they deal very decisively with them.
Now, Dr. Sweeting, I was in Hawaii when the fake text message went off to everybody, and we're hearing incoming ballistic missile, seek shelter immediately. My wife and I are in the gift shop at the Maui aquarium, and I was filling in Hugh Hewitt afterwards. I did an interview with Hugh Hewitt after all that happened, and I'll ask you the same question you asked me. Is you're sitting there listening to missiles rain down. For us, we're just getting a warning, but you're actually hearing missiles. You're with your wife. You're trying to seek shelter. You don't know if there's another missile coming. You don't any of that stuff. Tell us what's going through your mind. Are you trying to communicate with your kids, or are you thinking that this could be the end? Help us understand what was going through your mind at that moment.
Well, I wasn't thinking this could be the end. Look, my hope is in the Lord, and I rest my trust is in Him, and my times are in His hands, and I don't want to be afraid. But when we've toured. We were down around Gaza in August, and you go into those villages, and every playground, every bus stop is a bomb shelter. When we were there in August, you go into the hotel, and they go, "Here's your key, and here's where the bomb shelter is. When you hear the sirens, you have so many seconds to get there." So and they are used to dealing with this. I mean, this is the daily life, but it's something that Americans cannot imagine. So for me, it was, okay, now I get to experience vividly, viscerally, firsthand what they're experiencing, and it's really disconcerting. I mean, because I'm with my wife too. I want to protect her, but this is not just myth. This is on the ground reality most of the time. And so that's where I think they have to have a right to defend themselves. We have to stand with them as they defend themselves, and we have to, I think, recognize repeatedly and just say their right to exist as a people, and the importance of their presence in the Middle East. They're a huge presence for good in the Middle East.
That's Dr. Donald Sweeting, Chancellor at Colorado Christian University, returning back from Israel, was at the Tel Aviv airport when the intercontinental ballistic missile, essentially, from the Houthis hit. And, gosh, I'm glad you were safe there. You can follow Dr. Sweeting online at dsweeting on X. dsweeting, he updates on all of this. And Dr. Sweeting, I'm glad you were able to connect with great people there, and more importantly, glad you were safe, you and Christina getting home safely. Thank you for taking time to join us today.
Yes, thank you.
Glad to be with you. Take care.
All right. Speaking of Israel, Bill, I found some interesting news over the weekend about Israel.
Oh,
that involves me.
Uh-oh. What?
So when I went to Israel 2 years ago for its Independence Day, I was on a flight that flew 3 hours, turned around, and flew 3 hours back. It was a 6-hour flight to nowhere.
Oh, excellent.
And then we got to hang out in the Newark airport for 24 hours before we got on another flight and flew back.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a disaster in the sense that not an actual real life-threatening disaster, but, oh my goodness, it delayed the whole flight by 24 hours in a 6-hour flight to nowhere. Well, what had happened was there was a Israeli man who was sitting in the jump seat waiting to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And the flight attendant came up to him and said, "You can't sit here." He goes, "I'm just waiting to go to the bathroom." "No, you can't sit here." "I can sit here. I'm just waiting to go to the bathroom." And they got into this big, like, verbal thing, okay?
Ah, jeez.
But there was no violence. No one was throwing any things. Anyways, because of that, they turned the entire flight around, right? And everybody around me was like, United doesn't know how to deal with Jews. Jews argue. That's what, like, literally the other Jews were sitting there telling me, that's just what Jews do. We argue about stuff. He doesn't want to get up. He's waiting for the bathroom. We're going to argue, all that stuff. They don't want, anyways, they take the guy off in handcuffs, and I filmed the entire thing.
Oh, okay.
So film it, all that stuff, take the guy off, and then we're back in the Newark airport, and they just let the guy go. He's just wandering around with the rest of us.
Yeah.
So we're like, thank you, dude, for delaying our flight for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Nobody can get any hotel vouchers, anything like that. Anyways, Jews have sued United, saying that they've discriminated against the Jewish people because they don't know how to interact with Jews. And so they don't understand that this is just naturally how Jewish people are. They like to argue and debate about stuff. And so they sued and have cited my videos in their lawsuit.
Oh, that's funny.
So
That
I did like a little Google alert popped up. Like,
oh, that's funny.
Oh my God. I'm like Forrest Gump, dude. I just find
That's very
myself
funny.
in places that end up.
Yes, you are. Yes.
So
That's hilarious.
To the plaintiffs in that lawsuit, I'm willing to testify for a fee about everything that I saw. So if you're going to sue United, I'd like a piece of that.
That's good. Good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that. All right. Thank you to Dr. Donald Sweeting for joining us when
thanks. That was
the
amazing.
missile hit. Those are life-changing moments.
Oh, yeah, they are. That is
so-
spooky. That's very scary. And it worries me, the conversation that we're having, that the Israelis that he's talking to don't see a two-state solution.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
That really worries me.
Nope. No, they're
because-
just going to take it over.
I know, but what that's going to do is if they just take it over, that's going to harden the resolve of many of the other Middle Eastern countries. And one of the things I'd been hearing behind the scenes was that Donald Trump's administration wants to expand the Abraham Accords into the larger members of the Middle Eastern group there. And that won't happen. If you run over and there's no Palestine,
I totally disagree.
that's not
I
gonna
totally disagree.
Really?
This is a group of people that the Saudis don't want, the Jordanians don't want, the Egyptians don't want. They could easily absorb these people if they want. They don't want them.
I know.
And what you saw during the last set of Abraham Accords was them abandoning this notion of we have to defend Palestine at all costs against the Jews. They're tired of it. Jews have proven with Israel that they have built a successful country with a successful economy. There's a lot of money to be made there. They're not gonna hold on to this Palestinian state anymore. They're done with it.
Here's the thing, though, is that you just said they don't want them. So where do they go? And that's the issue. That's the thing, is I think it is exactly that reason why the Arab states want a Palestinian state, is because they don't want them. What the Arab states don't want is to have to integrate the Palestinians into their societies and find places for them. Their solution is a separate Palestinian state because, I agree with you, they don't want them. And that's why I feel a lack of a two-state solution creates more conflict in the region than we want. That's why I agree with you.
Well,
But
I
they don't
think
want
it'll just be an occupied space, and Israel's going to lock it down, and
I
you're
know.
just going to have to deal
But
with
then
it.
again, I know that none of that's going to go over well. None of that's going to go over well. Yeah.
Join the conversation. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. 720-819-5115 is the Dan Caplis Law text line. So our AC went out last summer, and this was a point of debate within the family because I grew up in Colorado, and we never turned the AC on. If it got hot during the summer, you just kept the windows open at night. You turned the fans on. Then you shut the windows during the day. And I didn't need AC. It didn't bother me. Even in the hottest parts, I can deal with heat. It doesn't bother me. Other members of my family hated it. They grew up in the desert, especially the California deserts, where that AC just cranks all the time. It keeps the house in a nice, comfortable temperature. So finally, I acquiesced, and we had to get a new AC, which also meant getting a new furnace. We called L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, and they nailed it. They got it done. One-day installation, no stress, professional service from start to finish. They even followed up to make sure everything was perfect. Now, our home is perfectly comfortable. And no matter what the weather, whether it's cold, whether it's hot, L&L Heating and Air Conditioning gets it done and brings peace of mind. Listen to some of these offers. They have free programmable thermostat and carbon monoxide detector with new furnace or air conditioner installation. No, like I can adjust my AC on my phone. It's amazing. No emergency charges, 0 trip fee, price match value guarantee on equipment, free estimates, licensed and insured, 5-year labor warranty. Everything works great. Our family really couldn't be happier. So if you're looking for fast and reliable, honest service, I highly recommend L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, 720-851-1691. That's 720-851-1691. Online at bestdenverhvac.com. It's the best website because it actually describes what they do. bestdenverhvac.com. I'm sure glad we called them. That number again, 720-851-1691. All right. Is the state of Colorado going to rely more and more on fees because it can't raise your taxes? Yes, and you're not going to believe what's coming down the pike. We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill, open those wallets. Axios Denver reporting Colorado lawmakers hike fees to fill in budget gaps. If you own a car, run a restaurant, or go to court, expect to pay more in fees in coming years. The Democratic majority at the state capitol is using fees to fill spending gaps in an austere budget year, even though it works against their promises to reduce Coloradans' cost of living. The small dollar increases are easy to overlook, but a handful of bills would generate big money for the state. House Bill 1303 would permit a $3 annual fee on car insurance, a $16.5 million a year total to spend on road safety projects. So $3 more, okay? This is where they nickel and dime you. House Bill 1189 would allow county clerks to increase fees for staffing and mailing documents. So you're going to get your car insurance fee go up. Now your county clerks are going to start to add fees. Senate Bill 285 would raise fees on retail food establishments by 25% in the first year. 25%, generating $691,000 for the state health department to do inspections and permitting. A bill in the works would increase the bridge and tunnel impact fee by 1 or 2 cents to pull in $28.4 million over the next 3 fiscal years. A draft bill would give the judiciary the ability to increase costs for court filings and docket fees. An item in the state budget authorizes the Air Pollution Control Division to increase fees on the companies it regulates by $6.6 million in the first year and more in the future. 2 other bills would reduce current tax breaks to add money to state coffers. One would increase the state tax revenue by $135,000 at full implementation. The other would add about $11 million. The reliance on fees, lawmaker says, is a result of the slimmed down budget and the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, which limits state spending and requires approval from taxpayers for tax hikes. Fees don't count under TABOR restrictions, despite efforts to put limits on their usage, meaning lawmakers have the power to implement new fees. I wish, if you could take the Democrats' ability to chase down every possible fee and put that into a free market system, they might actually be quite wealthy people. Take that same energy, that same determination to go find every little nook and cranny to get a fee out of. Man, they could run some successful businesses, I think. Bill, your thoughts?
Well, I dislike the fact that they keep going after it and raising the fees, but we're going to vote down any tax increases. And I don't see the people that are leading some of the Democrat Party, that many of them will have much larger bank accounts than most of the people listening to on the show, and even Jeff and I. They don't seem to want to raise, taxes on themselves. And that's kind of the problem, is that when you have those individuals with the larger bank accounts making the rules, they tend not to want to do that. It's the same thing you have with CEOs. When CEOs defer their salary to stock, and then you see them manipulating everything to make sure the stock price goes up, regardless of what happens to the fundamentals of the business. Because that's the system they've set up. So this is the system that has been set up. Rather than looking at raising revenue through the traditional members, they're going to go through it in fees, and they're going to nickel and dime most people to death, and it will end up being somewhat of a value-added tax or consumption tax, and it sucks. And I don't like it. I don't think this is the way that it should be done, but I don't think that functionally inside of the state there's a heck of a lot of other avenues, because the large and deep cuts that many people would be facing, everyone would think it's great until their own ox is gored. And as soon as you start goring your own ox, then everybody's going to scream and yell and complain. And the biggest example I have are the people who were down there during the educational protest when they were talking about funding for education, is that almost to a T, those teachers wanted the money to come from anywhere else. It didn't matter where it came from, just as long as it wasn't from our budget. And that's the problem, is that no one wants to see cuts in their own budget. So I don't think there's necessarily a good or decent solution on this one.
To me, it always comes across as a bait and switch. We can't raise taxes. The reason you can't raise taxes is because Coloradans don't want to pay more in taxes. Every time you bring that before people are like, nah, I don't want to do this. I don't want to give more of my hard-earned money to you down at the state capitol. Okay. We'll go around it by calling it fees. We're still going to milk you. We're still going to get the money. You're still going to open your wallet up for us. But we didn't do it by raising taxes. We got it by fees. To me, it just reeks of politicians and their swarminess getting to you no matter what. And it drives me crazy. And that's the way we are in Colorado. So you may say, well, we don't have the taxes that California has. Yeah, but we sure as heck got the fees. And as Bill's pointed out and Common Sense Institute's pointed out, a lot of that general revenue going into the state now coming for fees. So yeah, you may say, we got TABOR, we got the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. They're still finding a way to get into your wallet, and it drives me absolutely nuts.
Question, now, two of these bills focus on, now again, the fees would ostensibly go to road improvements. Now, that's we have to believe, and I think that's part of the problem, too, is that oftentimes that our state legislature takes money that is earmarked for one area and moves it into another area because there's a shortfall.
Yep.
And I think that creates a problem. But if they would go to, and we've all complained that our roads suck here in Colorado. They're atrocious. But if they would take these instead of fees and put them as a tax increase on Colorado drivers across the state, what would you handicap the chances of that bill passing? I would say probably 2/3 of a chance of it failing. So
well,
that would be
you want to know
issue.
my solution to all this? Because there's one road out there that is just so beautiful to drive on.
Yeah.
It is just perfect the whole way.
Yeah, it is what?
E470. Privatize the roads.
Oh, God, that's scary.
Privatize them all. Why not? We have a perfect example of a road out there that is privatized, and it is beautiful. It's not a crazy expensive to drive on. I mean, yeah, going out to the airport, you're going to pay a little bit to get on there. But if you took away the gas tax, you took away all these other taxes, and the only people that paid were the people actually driving on those roads, instead of all these other fees and stuff going into different things, then I actually think you might see more road improvement, and I think you'd pay less.
Oh, how could you possibly pay less? Because on the House bill right now, it's a $3 annual fee. If you would go to privatized roads, people are going to pay more than $3 annually on the.
That would add. That's a additional fee on top of
I know,
the car
but I'm just
insurance.
saying
So you're
base.
I'm looking at, have you registered your car? All those fees that come in, and then every time you pay for gas, you're paying an added tax on top of it for your roads. All that stuff. I think there's an argument to be made that you might actually save money, especially if you're not driving all that much on privatizing roads.
Oh, see, but you said they'd all be privatized, so that would be the problem. So you couldn't avoid it, and that's where I think that I understand where you're going with it, but that's where I think that your idea fails, is because when all of them are privatized, then it's the idea of you can't get away from it. So you are functionally taxing people on the lower economic ladders larger than you would people higher above, simply because of the functionality of the dollar. And so meaning that if it costs someone, if someone's making $50,000 a year and someone's making $250,000 a year, if they're both driving the same road and the cost for them to drive that road is $3.50, that takes more money as a percentage out of the lower earner than it does out of the higher earner.
You can say that about a gas tax.
In some cases, yeah. But the idea, though, that's the idea, is you're looking at that, and it's more of a punishment on side. I'm not always in favor of all
Here's
the gas
what
taxes,
I'm looking at.
but
I'm
that's the
looking
problem
at a
you've got with
state
it.
that's got all these taxes, all these fees, gas, registration, all that stuff. Now we're going to add $3 annual fee on top of that on your car insurance to raise $16.5 million for roads. Our roads suck. The only road that is worth driving on, that's nice, is the private road over there, and it's not crazy expensive. So could you I don't know, explore privatizing other roads. At least we might get better roads. Because right now our roads are terrible.
What do you mean by not crazy expensive? And the reason I asked that,
it's $18 from where we are to go out to the airport and back. If you take that,
so that's 18 there and back. So that's $20 to get to the airport and back. So if we would privatize all roads, let's just take that number. That would mean every time you drive to the airport, it's $20. That means every time you drive downtown, $20, $30. You want to go to a football game in Boulder, $45. So everything.
I think what you're doing is assuming that rate would be the same rate as every road you take. I don't know if that needs to be the case.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it would be, and you'd also have
because
surge
now
pricing.
if you have more people driving, you might not need to charge that much.
It's not the case on E470. Those prices haven't necessarily dropped, and they actually surge price you. So when you get more people driving on the roads, they charge more, and so rather than less. So there can be surge pricing involved as well. So that's the issue, is because once those roads are more valuable, once you have more people on them,
the issue
it's a surge
right now
price.
is that we pay for all these fees and our roads are crap. So would it be worth paying to get some better roads? Maybe.
And what would the people that have businesses downtown think if it costs someone like myself or yourself $25 to get downtown? What would that do to your night out as far as concerts? What would it do? Because
But Bill, you're still only dealing with one part of the calculation. The other part of the calculation is you're not being charged all those other fees through your registration, through your gas. Now you have a lot more money to begin with. But join the conversation. Would love to hear from you. 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. Colorado lawmakers hiking fees to fill in the budget gaps. Do you support it? Is it better than a tax increase? Or are they just getting you by hiding these fees? They're still getting to the money. One way or the other, they're just doing it via fees. 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. Speaking of Dan Caplis, let's talk about Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade. Pro-life, pro-family, pro-faith, pro-America. He's right there with us on the values. He's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. More than just being a really great guy, he's a real winner in the courtroom. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Caplis Law is so trusted, he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS Law.com. You get in a car accident on one of those public or private roads, Dan Caplis is the one to be there for you. So give Dan a visit at dancaplislaw.com. All right, we'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
We'll continue into the next hour. Donald Trump setting up to build Alcatraz again as a place for violent offenders to be housed. What do you think of that? A big waste of money or a good idea? How do you feel about it being outside San Francisco, too? We'll get to all that and more in the next hour. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, May 5th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up in the greatest country in history. Donald Trump's your president. He's going to reopen Alcatraz. He's going to save Hollywood. That's what we're talking about next. Not going to want to miss this hour, but now is time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good Monday morning, 58 and mostly sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 66 today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. our top story.
Yeah, we had spent 12 days in Israel with some Jewish friends, and we were leaving. We checked in at Ben Gurion, and we're walking down the big ramp towards our gate, and all of a sudden the sirens went off. And they people looked confused at first, and then they all started running towards the shelter. We were running with them.
Chancellor of Colorado Christian University, Don Sweeting, on the show last hour. And wow, life or death experience in Israel. Several airlines are canceling flights to Tel Aviv after a ballistic missile attack hit near Israel's main airport. The attack was carried out Sunday by Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen.
And before we got to the shelter, we heard this huge explosion. I mean, it was really close. Somebody said, "Oh, Iron Dome shot it out of the air." I said, That's not an air shot. You could tell it was on the ground because the ground shook, and it was actually just a few meters from Terminal 3 where we were. But I mean, they were going for this was an attempt at mass murder.
Delta Air France, Lufthansa, and others among those that have canceled flights for the next day or two. Federal authorities say 3 planes were forced to alter their approach to Reagan National Sunday. The planes were on a final approach around 11 in the morning when a police helicopter was dispatched to assist with a car crash. This is the new policy there. The 3 flights were told to go around and make another approach. The FAA says all proper procedures were followed and all 3 aircraft landed safely. Well, since these commie judges want to ruin the country and have the people's court for every illegal criminal out there, 47 brainstorming. He wants to reopen Alcatraz and throw the worst of the worst in there again.
Where did you get the idea for reopening Alcatraz?
Just an idea I've had, and I guess because the judges, so many of these radicalized judges, they want to have trials for every single, think of it, every single person that's in our country illegally, that came in illegally. That would mean millions of trials, and it's just so ridiculous what's happening. And it's long been a symbol, Alcatraz, of whatever it is. I mean, it's a sad symbol, but it's a symbol of law and order. And, it's got quite a history, frankly. So I think we're going to do that, and we're looking at it right now.
The 47 administration is suing the city and county of Denver and the state of Colorado. The lawsuit filed Friday by the DOJ claims the state and local sanctuary laws hinder the federal government's ability to regulate and control illegal immigration. The suit names Denver Mayor Johnston, Sheriff Diggins, and the city council, as well as Governor Polis and AG Phil Weiser. Hey, need some Miller time right now. How about from DJT? Is Stephen Miller the top candidate for National Security Advisor?
Stephen Miller's at the top of the totem pole. I mean, I think he sort of indirectly already has that job. You understand? Because he has a lot to say about a lot of things. He's a very valued person in the administration, Stephen Miller.
Hey, and back to the illegal story. Here's what's happening in L.A.
In the meantime, here in the sanctuary city of Los Angeles, ICE confirms to Fox News that 3 suspects arrested in connection with the home invasion murder of a man in the Woodland Hills neighborhood last Sunday are all in the U.S. illegally. ICE's acting director, Todd Lyons, tells Fox they are all Georgian nationals, 2 of whom were caught and released at the border after crossing illegally, and the 3rd, who overstayed a tourist visa, and listen to this, had 2 previous arrests with ICE detainers on him ignored due to sanctuary policy.
There you go. And it just keeps on going and going and going. Hey, what time is it? We already had Miller time, but what time is the Nuggets game tonight? 7:30 tip-off in Oklahoma City in the first game of the second round of the playoffs as the Nuggets try to a mild upset tonight in Oklahoma City, see if they can take a 1-0 lead this evening. All right, 56 in Arvada, 54 in Castle Pines, 58 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
Sovereignty has taken the lead.
Journalism is second toward the good side. Valles is third, but it will be sovereignty to rule the Kentucky Derby.
Yes, defeating journalism. Love it. Blake Olson, have a delicious Cinco de Mayo today. News Talk 710 KNUS.
I love Hispanics.
Yes. Be ready for a wet stretch of weather for Denver and all of eastern Colorado. Temperatures will be cool, skies will be cloudy, and occasional rain and thunderstorms will be developing later today. A high near 60, breezy southeast winds. Occasional rain and thunder tonight, lower 40s. Occasional rain and cool, low 50s Tuesday. Occasional rain and thunder Tuesday night through Wednesday, with highs 50s and lows 40s. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. And schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome to the Rock, Bill. It's where DJT is going to be sending his opponents, well, actually just violent criminals. Trump orders feds to reopen Alcatraz to house America's most ruthless and violent criminals. Fox News reporting Donald Trump is calling for the notorious prison, and now historical landmark, to be rebuilt, larger, and reopened to house the country's most ruthless and violent criminals. Trump made the announcement on Truth Social last night. Rebuild and open Alcatraz, the president said. For too long, America has been plagued by vicious, violent, and repeat criminal offenders, the dregs of society, who will never contribute anything other than misery and suffering. When we were a more serious nation in times past, we did not hesitate to lock up the most dangerous criminals and keep them far away from anyone they could harm, Trump continued, adding that it's supposed to be this way. No longer will we tolerate these serial offenders who spread filth, bloodshed, and mayhem on our streets. Trump said he is directing the Bureau of Prisons, Department of Justice, FBI, and Department of Homeland Security to reopen a substantially enlarged and rebuilt Alcatraz to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders. I love it. Bill, your thoughts on this?
This is silly. This is just silly.
Welcome to the Rock.
Why?
Alcatraz has become a tourist destination. I could quote The Rock. I love that movie.
But why? I mean, just the idea.
Losers always whine about their best.
Yeah.
Winners go home.
I just understand the idea that the idea is that we don't have enough prisons. We don't have any space. We don't. What, Guantanamo?
No, it sends a message.
What message? Is it the message that Rikers Island isn't sending? Is it the message that Guantanamo isn't sending? What message?
What about the one in our backyard? Supermax.
Yeah. What message isn't being sent? I mean, he's talking to someone behind the scenes, talking to Mark Crowley behind the scenes here. We're talking about this. Sounds like he wants to start an archaeological dig in ancient Egypt to open the tombs of the pharaohs. What's he going to reopen, discover? This is silly. He wants, it would have to be a huge capital improvement. He would have to spend money to go and build the prison again, and then he'll have to fund and finance it in a time in which we're like, we're spending too much. So I need to be convinced that the current prisons that we have aren't doing the job. This to me is Donald Trump throwing out that shiny object and saying, look at this, because he's worried about other things. He's worried about the narrative being, the fact that the economy just went into a negative GDP for the first time in several years. And if he does that two quarters in a row, we officially are in a recession. So
we'll just change the definition.
There are
of
some.
recession.
I know that's exactly what the Republicans would do.
That's what Biden did.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah,
no. In what way?
In what way? He changed the definition. Remember when we were facing a recession? He's like, we're just changing the definition.
No, but in what way? I don't remember that, honestly.
Oh, you don't? Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at it. But
again, I'd have to see that being done. But
I think what he did was exactly. he did this exactly for the response you're giving. I just think 99% of the things he does is to just troll those people that don't like him, and they get all worked up. Do you know the cost? Technically, do you know the cost that it's going to take to put this together? And then everyone gets worked up, and he just laughs, and it's a Sunday night tweet on social. But
so he's not serious. At the core, he's not serious about this.
I don't know if he is. Maybe.
But you said he just tweeted to get people like me riled up to go.
I think that's the majority of it.
So if he's not serious about cost, if he's not serious about doing it, so he's doing this and he's just unserious. He's just okay.
Probably.
Great.
We'll see if it actually comes to be.
How presidential of him. That's fantastic. That's great.
Oh, but those of us that are
great.
fans just enjoy it.
Enjoy what, though? I mean, enjoy what?
Everybody flipping out.
I'm not flipping out. I don't think it's a big deal.
Not you.
You're
not as bad as some are. You're not over into the MSNBC stuff.
I don't care about it. I think it's stupid. I mean, it's another one in the long list of really, really, really stupid ideas that Donald Trump has decided to float on his own Truth Social account. So what?
You are getting worked up about it.
It's dumb. No, it's completely dumb. No, the thing is, I get worked up that anybody's giving this any breath as far as it being necessary or that he's even being serious about this. He is an unserious person. That's what this is. He's unserious about this. This is just silly.
I think it's good. I love the location of it. That's one of the reasons. One is so Trump does a really good job of hearkening back to like an older time in America, right, where criminals were put out on Alcatraz and it was a feared prison and all that stuff. I think he's kind of hearkening back to that. But the idea that the people of San Francisco have to look out on a real working prison that's not just a tourist attraction, I think that's brilliant.
So what?
I love the fact that the people of San Francisco get to look out on that.
So what? Again, the idea of being so.
Yeah.
Again, I know that you're driving. I know, but you're driving some personal enjoyment from it, and I look at that and go, I can't think of. Again, I have a hard time thinking that any individual would have a lot of great joy or great consternation over the fact that Alcatraz would be opened again. This seems to be just silly. And it's a dumb suggestion. And his whole thing about, we're not holding the most violent ones responsible. Dude, didn't you just pardon a whole bunch of people? Didn't you just pardon some people that beat up cops? Didn't you just pardon people that were convicted of seditious conspiracy, which would be an attempt to overthrow the government? And then you're worried about not holding people responsible? No, you're not. No, you're not. No. He's just being unserious again. And that's okay. He's free to do that. But we are also free to say, this is dumb, and he's being dumb again. We're free to do that.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Trolling. It's hearkening back to the times we kept our criminals locked up in very serious places like Alcatraz. Maybe we're a little jealous that we're losing from Supermax here because we got Supermax down in Florence, Colorado. Lots of bad boys and girls down there, and now they're going to be over to Alcatraz. Part of me just loves how riled up everybody gets when he does stuff of this, and I think it's a good part of why he does it. Feel free to join us. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Donald Trump reopening Alcatraz to house America's most ruthless and violent criminals. A great idea. Or a waste of money. Where do you fall along it? We'd love for you to join us on this. Let's talk about the Black Eyed Pea. You guys know that Mother's Day is coming up? Is Mother's Day this Sunday?
You should know that.
Dude,
don't tell your mom this.
Yes, Sunday, isn't it? Dude, yes. I got my gifts weeks ago. I'm already on Father's Day shopping, man.
Says the guy who hasn't shopped yet. You have to cover it up. They didn't know it was on Monday. I'm just saying, maybe.
Mother's Day is this Sunday.
Yeah, maybe you need to make reservations with Black Eyed Pea.
Yeah, seriously. Especially if you haven't made your reservations yet, this is a good place to go. Black Eyed Pea this Sunday, locally owned and operated by Steve and Michelle with 8 locations. There's sure to be one near you. When's the last time you took the family to eat at the Black Eyed Pea? This Sunday, May 11th, is Mother's Day. How about taking mom to celebrate at the Black Eyed Pea? Mother's Day specials include grilled salmon, hand-carved prime rib, the salmon and shrimp combo, and the chicken cordon bleu. Mom's sure to find a favorite with one of those. All entrees served with 2 sides, fresh baked rolls, and your choice of a featured dessert. What are the featured desserts? Well, cherry cobbler or peach cobbler served with ice cream. Come celebrate Mother's Day at the Black Eyed Pea, 10:30 a.m. They open up this Sunday. And no matter what the occasion, Black Eyed Pea gift cards are always a great gift idea. I love everything about this restaurant. I know you will as well. Let them do the cooking for you and keep it in Colorado. Visit the Black Eyed Pea near you. Mother's Day this Sunday. We can come to the rescue and get you a reservation at the Black Eyed Pea. All right, we'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Trump orders feds to reopen Alcatraz to house America's most ruthless and violent criminals. A message sent to the criminals out there that we're rebuilding places to house you. This is a good, strong message sent, or just a waste of money. We've got plenty of other places. You got Gitmo, you've got Supermax in Florence. We don't need to rebuild Alcatraz. What do you think? Text messages are all over the place on this one. Alcatraz reopening is a waste of money. It's a deflection, and it doesn't get people riled up. It's just another symptom of an 80-year-old man with a 15-year-old boy's maturity. It's a way to show some of our simple-minded voters that housing violent illegals that judges decide that we can't deport costs money. We have to do something. You know, one of the things to point out is City of Denver spent $356 million on illegal immigrants. Now, all of a sudden, Democrats are concerned about spending money when it comes to housing the most violent among us. Well, let's go to
the thing
Jay
for me would be it has
Denver.
to do with it has to do with the assumption that we aren't. That somehow the ones that are the most violent among us are just roaming free. That somehow there's this line of, oh, you've killed this many people. I'm sorry, we have nowhere to put you. Good luck. We're the single monitor. That's the assumption under there, is that we already are not housing those that are most
it
violent.
sends a message, but let's see what Jay in Denver thinks. Jay, good morning. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Good morning. Great conversation. So just kind of a joke. Alcatraz. First of all, Birdman from Alcatraz, great movie. If they put those people, the Venezuelans have been hurting everyone there, they could use a catapult, like the old days when they would drop people over in Trojan time and in Roman times and throw them over the wall. But instead of from Alcatraz, they could throw them over the top of Golden Gate Bridge, because at the outside of the Golden Gate Bridge is where all the sharks breed. And so that's why nobody's ever made it out of there. So that'd be kind of an interesting play. All tongue-in-cheek, of course, just a joke.
That is funny.
I don't like these Venezuelans doing what they did to those poor people in that apartment complex. I physically drove there just to see where it is, right by Lowry Air Force Base. And, they're just vicious. They're horrible. It's awful what they're doing. So maybe it would be a good sign to flip them over the top of the bridge and let them swim back to Venezuela. They're not going to make it very far.
So you do think there's part of this is sending a message?
That's right. It's as old as the dawn of time.
I'm not sure they'll actually ever get this refurbished, but, I think it sends a message. Well, Jay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Jay's line will be open. Jay's line, 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971 if you want to join us. In addition to talking about reopening Alcatraz, do you see Donald Trump's going to save Hollywood, Bill?
Oh, yeah. That's great. Yes. That's what we've needed so far. That's been the number one problem that we've had financially, is that I know that when we were going through the past election cycle, the one thing that was almost universal by almost all voters, I mean, this is across any sort of political ideological line, is, won't somebody think of the actors and actresses? Oh my God, those movie houses. They can't make any money. Oh, that MCU and Disney and those live action and oh God, the Star Wars universe. Have you seen what they've done to the Star Wars universe? Yeah, we were so concerned about the finances in Hollywood. Yes, sure.
It is an industry that's tanking.
I'm not sure about that.
Oh, yeah, I've been following this. I follow a bunch of producers, all that stuff. I mean, you're watching job cuts across the spectrum, whether it's producers to the stunt guys to the – oh, yeah, I think we're down 26% at this point. Year over year. So it is going down, down, down.
The reason I ask that would mean our federal government would be tanking because we're firing a whole bunch of people and shedding people. So I'm not. That's the thing that I'm looking at, is if the idea is that firing a bunch of people is that the industry is tanking. That I'm just curious about that bromide. And so what I see is that in many ways, people looking and saying the people that get to make the decisions want to keep more of the monies. And so now we need to get rid of other people. There's a reason why they're looking at trying to use AI for screenwriters, because they don't want to pay the screenwriters.
Yeah.
There's a reason they're
Right.
trying to get the visual rights to certain actors and actresses in perpetuity, because they want to create AI versions of them through CGI and not have to pay them. For me, this is more about them wanting to keep more of the money than necessarily. But yeah, I understand the film industry is having some problems. Sure. But
Here's
every industry is.
what's happened. Hollywood got so difficult to pull a permit to film in.
Oh, yeah.
And so cumbersome and bureaucratic that they all went to Georgia. So if you remember like 5-10 years ago, like The Walking Dead, all that stuff, all filmed in Georgia, okay? Well, then Georgia, which initially provided a bunch of tax breaks for these guys, started to go, wow, there's a lot of money sitting there.
Yeah,
so
Colorado's
they started to now drive up the tax rates. So they all went to Europe. In fact, I think I was reading this, Disney's Marvel Avengers sequel and Mission Impossible, Jurassic World Rebirth, all filmed entirely outside the United States.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's just an AI thing. I think what happened was it got so cumbersome and the taxes became so high in these places that they've now moved off into other places to film. There's real serious financial consequences to this for the Hollywood production operations taking place here in America. And I think Donald Trump's trying to figure out a way to incentivize it to come back. Where I find it interesting is he wants to become a friend of Hollywood. Like, I know, like, The Apprentice at one point was the most popular show on NBC. It was like the juggernaut that drove everything else on NBC for a while.
Yeah.
So he's got kind of a foot in the entertainment industry, and then he's been on Saturday Night Live, all this stuff. But the idea that he wants to task the U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to go out there and to now negotiate tariffs in an effort to save Hollywood, I just find rather fascinating.
I can't figure out how he would functionally do it. That's what I can't figure out, because is he going to charge companies that are going to leave the country and go film somewhere else? Then what do you charge the tariff on when they come back?
Right, because it's intellectual property.
Yeah,
it's not an actual item.
You can't charge them on the film they're bringing back with them, because would you do it based on exposure, or would you do it based on total volume? And then what'll happen is you'll just have them start to do everything digitally, and then just bring things back on thumb drives or hard drives and things like that. So I can't figure out. This is another one for me of those Trump suggestions that he just wants to get people excited about that don't mean anything, because he can't possibly affect this type of change. And the other part is that I understand the idea that people, would like to have more movies made here, and there are some, the reason tax breaks and things that you outlined is very appropriate. But you go back to like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, that was New Zealand. Nobody at the time was like, oh, the destruction of the American film industry, because they spent 3.5 years filming in New Zealand. That's just kind of what happens with certain locations, and certain other locations are able to, like New Zealand was able to maximize the revenue there based on what they had the ability to provide for scenery and everything else. And that's kind of what you did. I mean, they shot, what was it? The long time. This is way before your time. Oh, my gosh, I'm going way back in time here. How old I am. But here in Colorado provided a series of tax breaks for them to shoot the TV drama Centennial here. And out in the eastern plains of Colorado, they set up entire Indian tribes and a whole bunch of other stuff. But it was filmed because they needed that location. They needed that look. But it also was due to some tax breaks that were there as well.
Right.
So that's just kind of how it goes.
So, I mean, I think it's more than just location. The total amount of money spent last year on film and television productions in the U.S. with budgets of more than $40 million fell 26% from the 2 years earlier. It rose during that period in the UK and Canada, though neither market has yet to catch up to the U.S. So I guess what I'm saying is because I've followed and lived a little bit of my life with the entertainment industry, the overregulation that's coming from California has reached a point now where, like, Hollywood is actually trying to actively reform its permitting process. It's looking at tax breaks. We're looking at a reality of the fact that a good portion of this industry is moving off of the United States, in part due to taxes and regulations and stuff like that. Do you think Hollywood likes Donald Trump coming in to do this?
No, not at all.
To try to bring jobs back. You don't think, I'm not talking about the big studios, but maybe the people that work there, the people that are actually impacted. Is he trying to do to Hollywood what he's doing to the auto industry and try to bring jobs back? Do you think people are going to support that?
Yeah, no, because again, I think that, again, we disagree on this one, but I believe that how he's trying to do it doesn't work. That he's functioning off of an economic plan that is decades old and can't accomplish what he thinks it can based on the tools that he is trying to use. I do disagree. No, I agree with you that the permitting system and the process and everything else became too cumbersome inside of Hollywood because they wanted to make it that way. They wanted to sit here and say, oh, you've got to do X and you got to do Y, and they are going to be rolling it back because, and it's again, competition, because of supply and demand. People have been moving out. But on the other side, things are leaning harder and harder into CGI. And what you need now is you need a big warehouse, and you need some people to stand there in some blue suits, and then you're going to create everything visually around them. So the idea of having to go to France or New Zealand or Tunisia doesn't matter. In fact, Tunisia is where they filmed, since we go back to Star Wars yesterday, may the 4th be with you, of course, Tunisia is where they filmed some of the early scenes inside of Star Wars. Star Wars A New Hope was filmed inside of Tunisia. So a lot of those early desert scenes were there, and no one was complaining at the time about it eroding the U.S. film industry. It has more to do with the studios wanting to replace many of the rank and file. And I don't think that these type of tariffs or economic programs are going to accomplish what Trump thinks they're going to. It's like, and just I'll diverge just for a second when he's talking about his tariffs and bringing manufacturing back, and you're talking about bringing back the auto industry. The problem he's got are the fundamentals of the economy at this point, and that is, according to what we had released on Friday, we have the economy shrinking and we have inflation staying steady or growing. That's a problem because you can't get manufacturing investment, any investment really, into an economy when it is both shrinking and has high inflation. Those are two things that will keep manufacturing investment away. You're not going to come in. You're not going to get a large company. It's not going to come in here and invest in a large manufacturing plant in an economy that is contracting while experiencing higher inflation. Just not going to happen. So how he's going about it isn't going to get him to the goal that he sets. And the same thing here with Hollywood. How he's going about it isn't going to get him to the goal that he sets. His goal may be admirable, but how he's doing it, the plan that he's laying down will get there.
Is your approach then that it's just going to continue to offshore Hollywood? The actual jobs are going to offshore, and things are going to CGI, and that's it.
Yeah, that's the direction that it'll go.
There's just nothing that can be done.
The thing is that it'll go offshore because how easy it is to get to certain locations, and if that location it can be better shot. It's again. There are so many things that have made the world smaller. Transportation is less expensive. The idea of picking up and taking the film crew with you is a little bit less expensive. You don't always have to hire everybody locally. What you need as far as the film crew is less expensive. The number of people that you need may be less expensive. You may only need the 2 or 3 principals. You don't need hundreds and hundreds of extras because those can be generated through CGI. And so, yeah, I think that how movies are being made are changing, and of course, the industry is going to try to eliminate a lot of the rank and file. Oddly enough, you and I experience the same thing inside the radio industry. Radio industry is changing. Those mom and pop stations like your mom and dad own don't really exist anymore. It's all conglomerations, and it's all supposed to be based on market efficiency. And now you have hosts that are not even in market hosting the vast majority of shows, FM or AM, across the dial. And that's kind of the same thing, is you're taking away those lower level jobs. I challenge anybody to go around to a radio station and find a promotions director. They don't exist. They were absolutely necessary in the 80s and 90s, and those jobs don't exist anymore for a variety of reasons, mostly money. And so that's it, is the industry is just changing. And when I can create something in a CGI room with computers, then there's no reason for me to take the crew to New Zealand necessarily. So, yeah, it's just changing, and I'm not sure tariffs solve anything.
Do you see my wife and I were talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
We watch a lot of older films because it doesn't feel like they're producing very many good ones anymore.
Depends on how you define good.
Like we love the Top Gun, Indiana Jones, right? I would say last year the only films we got really excited about were Twisters, and then a few years ago the new Top Gun one. But it just, and some of the old rom-coms that were fun. I don't know. We turn on Hulu and it's just or Amazon Prime. It just doesn't seem like the good films are being produced anymore.
Yeah, see, the things like with the Top Gun and Indiana Jones, I would call those tentpole movies. Those are those big summer blockbusters.
Yes.
And there are fewer and fewer of those, but I think some of it is because some of the ones that are being made aren't necessarily as good. And the MCU is part of that. I think that Marvel lost their way, where if we would go back 5 or 6 years ago, some of those MCU big tentpole movies existed. Pixar does that sometimes, and Disney also makes some pretty decent tentpole movies, and they've had some successes and they've had some failures. Snow White being a huge failure that Disney was hoping would be that kind of a movie. So I think part of that, but I also think that how we consume movies is changing. And because there is so much at-home viewing, there is less incentive for some of these larger blockbusters and things to be made because you don't have a lot of what I would call free money. People that are going to go out and go to the movies with the family on the regular every 2-3 weeks, that they would go and they would take that they take that event, but now they can do that at home. They can have that same experience at home.
Bill, text message coming in from Eric Manning. John Voight, Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson, charge of bringing back Hollywood. You think they can do it with the Trump administration?
Okay, here's a question I got for you, Eric. What have they done so far? Have they done anything? Anything? What's their role? What are they? What is the Hollywood ambassador supposed to do? Who do they talk to? What sort of power do they have? Again, that is a figurehead position. Donald Trump gave them a participation medal and patted them on the head and said, thanks for being a supporter. Here, put it on your resume. It's like when you got a promotion at work, but it didn't come with any extra money. That's all it is. They gave him a job title and no responsibility. It means nothing because there's no official Hollywood ambassador position. It doesn't have any power. Can't do
But he's also
anything.
taken over the Kennedy Center. He put him in charge. He himself is the chairman of the Kennedy Center.
Yeah, but
those are doing things.
I know, but he can put himself in charge of the Kennedy Center. He can't put himself in charge of Hollywood. He can't force any of those guys to do
You don't see what he's doing is trying to help that?
No, here's the thing is, I see him thinking that he's trying to help that because he's given some Hollywood supporters of his a special title, which means nothing. Nothing. They don't even get an extra parking space with their title. They can't show up at any of those film houses and say, there's my ambassador parking space. They don't get a tax break. They don't even get a sash to wear when they go out to the bar. It means nothing. It is a feel-good title that means nothing. Again, they got a promotion where the boss said, no extra money, but look at this cool title you can tell your friends you have. Gosh, thanks, boss. That's all it is. It's nothing. Nothing.
I see it as Donald Trump taking on and helping another industry that maybe hasn't been so kind to him in the past, but he's a little bit of an entertainer. He appreciates the Hollywood industry. And if Donald Trump could you just imagine, 4 years from now, as he wraps up his administration, he's brought back the auto industry. He's brought back Hollywood. He's improved the economy. We're flourishing. It's all just in a day's work with Donald J. Trump. That's how I see it. Join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Capitalist Law text line at 819-5115. Speaking about delivering, you know who delivers for you when you need your hair improved? That is Advanced Hair Restoration, the easiest guaranteed solution. If you're losing your hair, guys, and desire to have it back, then they are the ones to work with. Advanced Hair Restoration, a simple one-day treatment offering life-changing results. I've seen it with my own eyes. Guys, it's not magic, but close to it. They put your hair where you need it the most, and bam, it grows. It's actually science. Advanced Hair has it all. Top-rated Dr. Tanya Paul's modern technology, and best of all, you get your own natural hair that begins regrowing the very next day. Advanced Hair even guarantees it will grow for life. So schedule your free consultation now at 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you'll get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver now 2 years in a row and has changed the lives of tens of thousands of people. So don't wait. Check out the before and afters online for yourself, 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR, or advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. Text message 7586. Those 3 actors are dead. No, they are not.
I saw that. That was so funny.
They are not
They're
dead.
That's wonderful.
Did you see the absolute freak out that happened on social media when Donald Trump posted an AI picture of himself as the Pope?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that one. That one and his May the 4th Be With You one. Both of those were like, ooh, you didn't read the room.
I didn't see the May the 4th
Oh,
one.
yeah. The May the 4th one. Again, you guys got no nerds in the White House. Don't have a single nerd. There's no one on any of your social media sites that's a it's a
MAGA's
nerd.
all beautiful people. I don't know if you've seen that.
It's a nerd. No, none of y'all know this because the problem is that now the Pope one. That's like, ooh,
that was awesome, hilarious.
That was offensive.
Oh my gosh, it wasn't offensive.
It
was great.
No, the thing was, it was offensive. And again, I'm not taking this huge religious offense, etc. to it, but for me, it's like, yeah, you are that dumb. That's the idea. Is it literally reinforced the negative impression I have about Donald Trump and the people around him, that they're really that stupid. It's like, yeah, you're that stupid that you think this is neat.
Is this the May the 4th one of him standing there like Han Solo or something? He's got the eagles and the lightsaber.
Yeah,
that is
stupid.
Cool.
No, dumb.
Oh, Bill, he's even coming over into your world, and you just don't like him.
No, because look at his lightsaber.
It's red.
That's the problem.
What's
There's no
wrong
nerds.
with red?
That's the Sith. That's Darth Vader.
But maybe,
that's Sith.
But isn't that the way you view him?
Sith. No, yeah, but that's how he is. That's why. And
Isn't he playing into how you see him?
No, but he's playing to his fans.
Dark Lord.
No, but listen to it. Look at what he's saying. He's talking about all the greatness, and so he's representing himself as a hero while holding the weapon of the evil. That's the issue. Is nobody there recognized that the red lightsaber are the bad guys in the entire thread of the story. The entire thread. The bad guys. In fact, there are chapters inside the story where someone goes from being good to bad, and the lightsaber color changes in their hand.
Is that what's happening in the Army one?
I have
where
no
it's
idea.
changing?
That one I didn't see. But the issue is that he puts out one in a red lightsaber. No. It would have been so easy for him to have a green lightsaber. That would have been on the good guy side.
And
it wouldn't have been. No. I would not have. No. I'm not that I hate it. I'm just like, that is phenomenally stupid because he's presenting himself as a hero while taking on the mannerisms and the coloration of the evil side. He's basically sitting there. Anybody that knows Star Wars, he's sitting there going, "Hi there, guys.
All right,
I'm the bad guys."
DOD Rapid Response has got Pete Hegseth with a blue one and Donald Trump with a green one.
Is
that better?
At least somebody there knows their nerdness. Yeah, I won't critique that. That's fine. Again, I can say it's stupid. I can disagree with it, but that's it. At least you're holding true to the message you're trying to send. It would be like Joe Biden coming out with like Harry Potter and saying, "I wish all my Hogwarts fans, happy what a Quidditch day," and he's wearing a Slytherin robe. You'd be like, that's not the house you want to really. And a lot of people go, that's exactly the house he belongs in. That's the issue. That's the issue.
2033, they want to get you, Bill, going. Star Trek will always be superior and much better than dorky, doofy Star Wars.
Again, we could have the debate all the time. I think there's value in both. I think there's tremendous value in Star Trek and tremendous value in Star Wars, and they're trying to accomplish different goals. And I love the fact that someone's like, Star Trek is a lot better. Understand that the social engineering and liberal messaging inside of Star Trek, far greater than that you find in Star Wars. If you want to talk about which one is the liberal show of the two, it's Star Trek. Star Trek is by far the more liberal show. Star Trek is the first time on TV we ever had an interracial kiss. Star Trek was the very first time that was broadcast. So they are, if you want to say, Star Trek's the super lib ones. Just saying.
Interesting. Well, we'll continue this conversation. You're welcome to join us on the Star Wars versus Star Trek debate. Donald Trump is Pope. 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. I think a good 70% of what Donald Trump thinks when he posts is, I'm going to drive Bill nuts. All right, you're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. I don't even know where we are this last hour. We started out with Donald Trump in Alcatraz, and we went to Donald Trump in Hollywood, then Donald Trump in the May the 4th.
You can figure it out. Just use the force.
Yeah.
That's all I have to do.
Text messages raining in on this, by
Yes,
the
they
way.
are.
8422.
Star Wars and all of a
Bill,
sudden,
is
boom.
it similar to Darth Biden?
That's a good one.
One
That
of
is a very
them.
good one.
Let's see.
Yeah.
You and Gabe are going back and forth.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about Spinal Tap, the new Spinal Tap teaser. All you see is the amp, and the guy comes over and he turns the volume knob past 11 to infinity.
Dune movies. The first interracial kiss was Batman and Catwoman.
No, it's Kirk and the Green Woman. That's the first interracial kiss. There's a relationship between the two, Batman and Catwoman. But
Somebody rescue me! You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Jeff is running in the Nerd Dome. This is KNUS.